Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Encrypted Connections. I am your host, Kyle, and tonight I am super stoked to introduce our guests from Hellbent Holler, Joe and Jessi. How are you guys tonight?
Hey, hi there, Kyle. Great. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. Thank you. Let me just say hello to a few people in the chat because these people are the reason that I continue to do this. I swear it, and I know everybody probably says it about their channel, but just the greatest folks, man. I never thought in a million years that a YouTube channel would lead me to meet some of these just amazing people, man. Just amazing folks. Gosh, there's too many of you to even say hello to all of you. Well, anyway, hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Janelle, Brown Dwarf, River, good day, River. MK Ultra. I saw a Deuster in here too. That's got to be from you guys. What's going on, Deuster?
Yeah. We were with Deuster at the LBL just about a week or so ago.
Yeah, I saw that. And Martin.
Yep.
Yeah. What a sweet guy he is. I spoke to him not too long ago, and he was writing his book, his new book. And we spoke about, him coming on the show because man, how do you not love that guy? What a story he's got. And so he said that, when he was a little bit closer to finishing up the book and with some of the other stuff he was doing, he would come on the show. But that's got to be just a blast to be able to go out and do anything with somebody like that.
Yeah, he's a lot. He's not only is he a credible witness, a good man, a kind man, an interesting witness. He's a lot of fun too.
Oh yeah, he's great. Martin's one of our literal. It's bizarre. We kind of started open lines of communication when he first came forward with his story. Actually, the way it happened is that Seth Breedlove did American Werewolf, the documentary that Martin was featured in, and we'd been talking to Seth a little bit before it came out, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to do this Dogman thing. I'm going to mostly focus on witnesses." So we had talked back and forth to him, and I hadn't talked to him for a couple of months. And then one night we were messaging back and forth on Instagram, and I asked him by the way, how did that werewolf documentary go? And he goes, I'll send you a link to the screener. Check it out. Let me know what you think. And I got up to Martin's part and just stopped and messaged him back going, who is this guy, Martin Groves that had this encounter? This is insane. Mm-hmm. And Martin and I got in touch afterwards like that. And then, the three of us have become friends. The Deuster is a good friend of Martin's, and we've all just kind of got this weird little circle of friends now that it's bizarre. You were talking about how the people in your chat you become kind of like really extremely close to. Yeah. That's exactly like we are with these guys. We met up with them in the LBL, ran around for a few days.
Yeah, we had what I called like an all-star day. We were in the LBL for 8 days straight. And they all met up with us one day. It was Martin Groves, Dewey's wife Dee, Letitia Nunley, and Barton Nunley. And we all went out and we had a blast. Mm-hmm. We went to a bunch of different locations. We went to one of our locations where we found a lot of crazy evidence. And then we went to the site of where Martin Groves actually had his encounter in 1993.
So, first of all, you're right. That's an all-star cast. I mean, that's crazy.
We were, and not to cut you off, but yeah, we were standing. What was it, Wednesday night when it was raining?
Yeah, Wednesday
night. It was just torrential downpour. We're all out in the rain, putting up, like bait traps and stuff like that. And I just have this moment where I go, because I'm with Barton Nunley, and I'm going, I'm out here with Barton Nunley, man. This is about as cool as it gets.
Laying out Sasquatch
pheromone chips.
Laying out Sasquatch pheromone chips with Barton Nunley.
Yeah, I just had this moment where I was just going, damn, I'm with Barton Nunley. This is pretty cool, man. So I had a little starstruck moment in the middle of a field out there. So.
Martin Groves is actually in the chat. Hello,
Martin's
Martin.
on here. What's
nice
up, buddy?
To see you, my dear.
He is. Hello, Martin. How are you? Oh man, that's great. This is making my night. So yeah, that is an all-star cast. I feel the same way. I talk about this often, right? So this is so much about fun for me. I find this subject so fun. The little kid in me, when I picked up that book for the first time and I saw a picture of Patty and I saw, supposedly the Loch Ness Monster picture. I was stuck. I was riveted by it. And I had that thing in my imagination went wild. I have to know more. And it followed me forever. And so when you grow up and you read these books and you watch these documentaries and you see these shows, and then you have the chance to actually talk to these people, it's very difficult not to fanboy out sometimes,
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, my thing was a lot of people my age, the old TV show In Search Of is like what that original hook into us, and then you just, and it's fun. It's bizarre. You run into a lot of people that just seem so bent upon being miserable in the subject. And I'm going, at the end of the day, if you don't enjoy this, just why bother?
At the end of the day, we're running around. We're real life monster hunters. I think that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, that's way better than being an accountant, I guess. But growing up, I think Joe was the same way I was. We both were natural contrarians. We were, I was in a punk band growing up and stuff like that. So it's always you'll never tell me what to do and anything like that, and I'll just go against everything. And I believed in these things. I believed in ghosts. I believed in Sasquatch. I believed in these things, and I knew they were real. And people would constantly tell me they weren't. And I was like, yeah, well, I'll show you. I'll become a monster hunter.
Yeah, but it's true though. I mean, when you boil it down, you're right. And every kid wants to be that when you grow up, right? Yeah. Who doesn't want to be that? I think that, and we talk about it all the time, people's egos get involved. It becomes a competition for a lot of people, and it's not a competition. It shouldn't be a competition. What should be happening is people should be sharing everything that we find with each other openly, because if you really love the subject and you really want it to push forward, that's the way to do it. It's not withholding things because you think you're going to be the guy or the girl who's going to solve this riddle. You know what I mean? Like,
it's real bad in the Bigfoot community as well, with like Bigfoot researchers. One of the things I've said in the past is do you guys and girls want the truth, or do you want to feel like you're part of some little exclusive club that nobody else can get involved in?
Bingo.
And at the end of the day, that's the polar opposite of trying to search for truth.
Yeah.
I mean, we get contacted by people all the time, especially as the channel has grown. Because again, I always say we're not really YouTubers. We're field investigators that share stuff on YouTube.
Sure.
So we're real field investigation heavy. We're heavy on the tech. We're heavy on investigative techniques. And so people will occasionally contact us asking, just for a little bit of help, how to get started. We love that stuff.
Yeah, of course.
We love that stuff.
And also going back to your point that, people think that they'll be the ones to solve this riddle. I don't think there is any solving this riddle. I don't think it's going to happen in our lifetimes for sure. What information we do have, what we have put together is basically just one or two little pieces of a huge puzzle. Yep. We're just not working with enough right now, but that doesn't mean to stop the pursuit of the knowledge. It's important that we do our part to contribute to putting together what is going on. And again, like I said, I don't think we're going to have answers, especially not in our lifetime. But I think that we can work towards that and contribute to the advancement of this.
And on that topic, it's weird because I always say, look at the UFO, UAPs, if they want to call them nowadays. Look where we're at right now with that. We were talking about a little bit before we came on that the government's basically come out and said, okay, we were lying to you for all these years. There's something going on. We don't quite know what it is. And you can tell there's a little bit of power struggle going on behind the scenes right now by the way that there's a lot of information coming out and then it just hits a brick wall and stops. And then nothing comes out for a while. So it looks like there's a little bit of struggle behind the scenes as to who's going to control that narrative and control the flow of information. But at the end of the day, they've released stuff that they don't understand what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you had told me that 10 years ago we'd be in this spot right now, I wouldn't have believed you. So I used to think that, maybe you'll see the same thing for like other weirdness out there, like Sasquatch, something like that maybe we'll have the Sasquatch equivalent of that New York Times story that broke the UAP phenomenon out and introduced you to all the characters that you see nowadays, Elise Elizondo, everybody like that. And, but now I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if it seems like some information got out and then they have just put a stop to it. And I think we're just getting ready to head back into several years of secrecy, you know?
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't, and I might be wrong, you never know what's going on behind the scenes, but it seems like there was a lot of stuff released in a short amount of time. And now we're just back to just kind of slowly pulling it back out of the public, the public eye. And then maybe in 5 more years, this will just be another weird story that people tell,
Yeah. Or maybe in, 5 years, we'll get a couple of more glimpses of the truth. And that's it. We're only getting glimpses. We're only getting tiny little bits right now.
They're just trickling it out to us, and like you said, I think it's only because it got out. They had no control over it. It got out. These guys were like, listen, we saw this stuff. No one's going to keep us quiet anymore. Here's what we saw. And then, boom, here's what you get. And then from that point, it's just like anything else, it's like when a government official gets caught doing something they shouldn't with their secretary. Well, now we're in emergency management mode. What do we do? And
it's time to bomb some third world country at this point.
Exactly. They do that shit to get you from looking over here to look over there. Right.
Yeah. Well, like we were talking about before we came on, those 3 objects that were shot down after the Chinese spy balloon.
Yep.
Yeah, there's talk out there right now. They're going, oh, well, one of them was just and it's not even talk that's really in the main, and it's not on page 1 of the news. It's buried back in, but they're going, oh, it was a high school project weather balloon. And they show this thing, and I'm looking at it going, well, you said you shot it down with a missile. This is basically a Mylar party balloon with a very small, very lightweight instrument beneath it. A missile's not taking that out, man.
No.
The stories changing. The original stories that came out with that were weird because you've got pilots that are going, we don't know what it was. It moved against the wind. It didn't have any visible means of propulsion.
Yep.
We don't know how it was staying aloft.
And you've said this before, that we're just seeing Roswell all over again in real time.
Yeah, we're seeing Roswell in real time.
What happened with the Roswell incident is how many times did that story change?
Until now, the mass majority of people out there accept that cover that was just a weather balloon shot down over Roswell, or fell or crashed over Roswell.
Yeah.
But with this stuff, we were talking about how, these pilots have seen it. And, come on, man, these are American fighter pilots, Air Force and Naval fighter pilots. They know what they're doing, They're just, they're not just throwing somebody up there with an $18 million jet who doesn't know what he's doing and doesn't know how to observe, use the instrumentation that's on the plane. They know what they're looking at, When's the last time that an American, fighter jet shot down something by mistake? That doesn't happen because they're able to identify what they're looking at. And they didn't identify what they were looking at, but they were able to accurately describe what they were looking at. Craft that were the size of cars, silvery, cylindrical. They didn't know how they were staying aloft. You've got a fighter pilot going, I don't know how this thing's staying aloft.
Yeah.
These guys have seen balloons up there before. They've seen every probably manner of aircraft under the sun, and they're looking at something that they don't know what it is. So
it's these are the best of the best of the best. I mean, these are the guys who get in dog fights with other airplanes and craft when we're at war. And, they go through incredible amounts of psychological exams and testings. And it's crazy for anyone to believe that these guys don't know what they're looking at. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they don't know, but I mean, to say that, oh, they're misidentifying something as a weather balloon, like, it's just,
well, that's one of the things that
asinine.
cracks me up is that you see a lot of these like professional skeptics. Okay.
Yeah.
And you mostly see those professional skeptics involved in the UFO phenomenon. You get kind of more the casual amateur skeptics with like Bigfoot and the supernatural and everything like that. But the real hardcore skeptics that you see as a talking head on like, History Channel programs and all that, just constantly trying to debunk stuff. And, these guys are fairly knowledgeable about the phenomenon, but you've got that one of the first witnesses that came forward, Commander Fravor, who was off, that naval pilot off the coast of California.
Yep.
And this guy was like the head of the Top Gun school. He's the best fighter pilot of his generation.
Yeah.
He's literally, if America had to pick one fighter pilot to like
That's
represent it for whatever reason, that's the guy.
Yeah.
And that guy is standing there telling you, this is what I saw. This is how it behaved. This is what I saw in my instrumentation. I couldn't catch up with it. It seemed to know where I was going before I went there. It seemed to have some prescience to it. And then you've got some guy on Twitter going, nope, it was a Batman balloon that just, that somehow got up. And I'm going, come on, man. It comes to the end of the day where for years, all these topics have been belittled because you see those stereotypical, oh, it's just a toothless hillbilly from the trailer park. I saw a UFO, I saw a Bigfoot. Well, all right, fine. Now you've got a witness who is above reproach. We talk about
who has spent a majority of his life in aviation.
Yeah, I mean, and we talk about that. This is happening with like physical entities now. Look at Martin Groves. Martin Groves.
I was just going to say
there's a reason why we talk about Martin all the time, and it's not just because he's so important to us and he's become such a dear friend. Martin Groves is one of these witnesses that comes along like once in a lifetime. Right. He's not somebody who, I don't want my name shared. I don't want my face on camera. Martin Groves comes out and tells you, this is who I am. This is what I did.
You can go look it up. You can confirm all of these details.
Talks about what police department he was about. And what's weird is when you get to know Martin, you realize that Martin kind of underplays his police career a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Sure. Martin's a pretty humble guy. Yeah. But Martin, at the end of the day, is a guy who his sworn testimony could get your ass thrown in jail.
Mm-hmm. Okay? Absolutely.
And so this guy right here has come forward finally with his story. And I'm just going, come on, man. This is, again, not somebody who is just some person who could be dismissed because there's a lot of character assassination that goes on with this sort of stuff.
Of course,
they try to paint you as that toothless hillbilly. Yeah. Well, you can't do that with Commander Fravor. You can't do that with Martin Groves. You've got these people that are above reproach telling you these experiences that they had, and it's time for them to be taken seriously. So
yeah,
it's unfortunate too, right? That it has to be people with those type of careers why can't the janitor who saw this, why can't the lady who works at the flower shop in town who saw this, why can't they be as credible as anybody else?
Well, and they are, but I guess it's just because they don't have that pedigree,
right?
That it's easier to do, like it's like backhanded character assassination.
Sure.
When we started getting involved in like the Dogman phenomenon.
Oh yeah. This is very interesting.
Yeah, we were tracking strange animal attacks, animal deaths, the stereotypical, hey, this housewife went out for a jog, she was killed by wild dogs.
Yeah.
So I start tracking those and then just kind of mapping them out. One of the things I noticed is whenever those are reported in the news, the really weirder ones, there's this low-key character assassination that usually takes place with the victim.
Mm-hmm.
They'll mention that, they have a past with like drugs or alcohol.
Yeah, of course.
One person, they talked about how this lady was in her 40s. She had been arrested for prostitution like when she was in her teens. And I'm going, how is that relevant to her being
it's not relevant at all.
But so why would you bring this up?
Well, it's a lot easier to like discredit someone who is possibly was on the fringe or is on the fringe and treat them like their life doesn't matter if they get attacked by these things. And it's easier to discredit what happened to them if you're like, oh, this is obviously a bad person,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that always gets me is that if none of this is real, okay, if you, me, her, everybody else is just under some sort of weird mass delusion, all right, we've fooled ourselves into thinking something is there that's not there. that would be easy enough to prove without people having to resort to calling you crazy, calling names. That's ridiculous. Well, all right, then fine. Prove to me that this didn't happen,
Right.
and they can't do it. You know what I'm saying?
No.
And it's so it's weird. It's almost like they try to muddy the waters. The one case that I'm referring to, they went it's like they spent more on the article talking about her like past with the law. And I'm going, so did these so-called wild dogs come after her because she had a criminal hit? Why is this relevant to this?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Well, it's relevant to this to kind of go, oh, well, this is just somebody who's on the fringes of society. They don't matter. This is just an interesting news story. Read it, kind of almost to dehumanize them, to kind of make it seem like it's a trivial thing. So hopefully people reading this story will just kind of read it, forget about it, and move along. Then.
Yeah.
So.
It's sad though. One of the things that like I wanted to do here with this channel was really create a place for people to feel safe to talk about whatever their experience has been. It didn't matter if it was a UFO, if it was a Dogman, if it was a rake, whatever you saw or you experienced, come here and share it. I'm not going to ridicule you. I'm not going to put you down. I'm going to listen. I'm going to give you an ear. Right. And it's the thing about it with being in this fringe community, it gets very tricky though, because we're looked at so critically, because people are always trying to find that one thing, that one person who's hoaxing, that one person who's lying. You have to be very careful on what you share with the public, right? So like people send me stuff and I just try to tell them like, hey, I think it's great. Like it looks good, but I can't share it because I wasn't there to see it. And if for me to share it, I have to be able to say that I was there, I saw it with my own eyes, and this is what I saw. If that's what you saw, then you can share it. But being in this position is difficult because you have people come to you. I don't know if you guys get this, but you have people come to you and they're looking for answers and they want a place to share these things and they want you to validate them. And I can't always be that person to validate it for you.
Oh yeah. We don't try to validate, but at the same token, here's the deal. We all know that there's hoaxes out there.
Sure.
We know that there are people that for whatever reason, whether it's an attention thing, whether it's just some sort of I don't know, weird mental issue, they're going to hoax stuff. It's such a fine line you have to walk because at the end of the day, there's a thing that we talk about occasionally that's called the boggle threshold. There was a parapsychologist, Renee Haynes, I think, that coined that phrase. And it's almost like even for people like us that are open to this sort of stuff, all of us have this level in our minds where we're willing to accept up to a certain point, but no further.
Right.
After that, our mind just kind of boggles and we just dismiss it all. And, you see a lot of that as these topics have become more popular and you've got more people involved with them. There's a lot of witch hunts that go on, man. There's a lot of hoax crusades where you'll see people try to share their story and it's just, people just come down on them with
the knives come out.
Yeah,
at that point.
torches and pitchforks. Do you know what I'm saying?
Another thing to think about, and I know we were talking earlier about UFOs and the whole UFO phenomenon and how people reacted to it and how the government reacted to it and everything. You can apply that to cryptids as well when it comes to the possibility of disinformation agents within the community. With the UFO phenomenon, you had people back in the 50s, back in the 60s, who would join these UFO research groups and they would just go in there to sow dissent and then bring in false information. And they were disinformation agents deployed by the government. There is nothing saying that is not happening now within cryptid or paranormal communities, that there are actually disinformation agents that are coming in here and sowing dissent among the community, throwing in crazy sort of evidence that looks real and everybody kind of commits to, and then it comes out that it's a hoax. And that kind of thing can really, really cause some rifts between people and between researchers. And I think it's definitely a possibility that disinformation agents exist within the cryptid community.
See, when she and I first met, Jessi was mostly into paranormal type research, ghosts, hauntings, everything like that. I had been involved with Sasquatch research for years. And that was pretty much the only thing that I was really into. Once we moved into this area and we started this project, Hellbent Holler, and we started going out into these areas and we started to experience like other types of phenomena, that was kind of like an epiphany moment for me. It's kind of like an awakening where I kind of realized that some of the stuff that I'd kind of poo-pooed for years, it's actually happening.
Yeah.
I was never a UFO guy. I didn't really know much more about UFOs other than just the stuff that everybody knows, Roswell, maybe you saw fire in the sky, just stuff like that. And that was the
I would always be like, if something like the UFOs or aliens would come on or people would talk about it, I'd be like, oh God, no, I hate aliens. It was just not
anything that I enjoyed or anything that I was into. I thought Sasquatch was an undiscovered ape. And then slowly that evolved to, okay, it's a relic hominid of some sort, and now it's evolved to where I'm at right now where I just don't know. But it's weird because when that New York Times article came out with UAPs, and then all of a sudden you started having credible people come forward and like tell these stories, and then you realize, hey, the government's been lying to us about it. Even if you don't see a connection between Sasquatch and UFOs, you know what I'm saying? Because there's always those Stan Gordon type stories where, the UFO comes down, the Sasquatch gets out. Even if you don't care anything about that, if you think that those stories are completely impossible, there's still a real parallel to be drawn between the physical cryptid world, if that's what you want to call it, in humanoids, like Barton Nunley calls them, and what's happened with UFOs. You've had a topic that for years, you've had a lot of anecdotal reports from very credible people.
Yep.
Very little trace evidence, lots of reports of trace evidence being collected by the powers that be, the government. There's a lot of parallels between these. And quite honestly, UFOs were no more respectable than like Sasquatch, hauntings, anything like that, until that New York Times article came out. And now all of a sudden, people are going, all right, well, we'll believe Sasquatch. We'll believe UFOs, but Sasquatch and the rest of that's still fake. And I'm going, why is that? Because quite honestly, they were pretty much indistinguishable up until just a couple of years ago.
So what point is that line in the sand going to move again? Are we going to get another New York Times article? And now the NPCs of the world are going to say, okay, Bigfoot real now.
Yeah, exactly. All it takes is just that one article. But there's parallels to be drawn between, not even if you think they're completely unrelated phenomenon, there's parallels to be drawn culturally on them, on how the public has viewed it and accepted it and processed that information. And I think that for me, that was an eye-opening thing. I went, all right, I've got to play catch up on the whole UFO phenomenon now, because again, we just kind of laughed it off for years. And same thing with Dogman. We thought Dogman, the whole idea of Dogman, come on, man, the idea of Dogman's crazy when you just step and think about it, even if you're into this stuff. And it took us actually getting out there, investigating it for ourselves, starting to talk to like real credible witnesses and everything like that, for us to finally just go, all right, we're wrong. We were completely wrong. There's something here. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know how it does any of the stuff that it does, but there's something here to it.
And when you start to research these topics, it's like with anything, and I'm not going to compare what we do to science in any kind of way, but it is like a moving target. You need to be able to evolve your thought process and your theories with new information that comes in. Like Joe had mentioned, we laughed off the idea of Dogman. We thought it was ridiculous. We did not believe it was anything that was real. Yeah. So until we started discussing it with these people that became credible witnesses to us, we got a thermal image in the LBL that was just absolutely shocking.
Insane.
So when that happened, we changed our opinion on everything. We advanced our opinion. We let everything evolve. And I think it's very important that if you want to be taken seriously, you don't die on some hill, because that's not how the scientific method works.
Yeah, it's not how science works.
It's just not how it works. You have to be able to just let it evolve. And there's that Max Planck quote that I say all the time, that science advances with every funeral, and it just one funeral at a time, science advances with that, because you have so many people who have dedicated their entire lives to a theory within a subject, and no matter what information they're given, they're going to die on that hill until they actually kick the bucket and die. And then we can say, okay, he was wrong about that.
And then a new person comes forward and goes, hey guys, this is what's really going on. And it's like that in the scientific community, and you see that in the paranormal cryptid community,
for
whatever you
sure.
want to call it. You've got people that are, again, my whole thought process on this has changed dramatically over the past 10 years. It's almost night and day from where it was 10 years ago. And guess what? It might be completely different 5 years from now. Science is about forming a hypothesis, trying to test that hypothesis, trying to, come up with a theory for it. But at the same time, you have to be open that as new data comes in, you have to be willing to change with that, and it's just, people tell me all the time, all that's scientifically impossible. And I'm going, well, great. You're a scientist. Then tell me why that's scientifically impossible. Well, it just is. Okay. Then obviously you're not a scientist. You can't tell me why this is scientifically impossible. It doesn't make sense. I'll agree with that. I'm just going to tell you right now, the idea of like an upright canine creature is no more or less implausible than, an upright 8 foot tall hairy primate that has some ape-like qualities that's managed to stay undetected in North America. I don't know how that's possible, but it's happened.
Right.
I mean, it's this point where it's happened. And I think that people like to have everything needs to be in a box. We live in the information
that way.
age. Yeah, you can get on Wikipedia right now and find an answer to almost anything. So when you're presented with a problem that you can't easily find an answer, you tend to dismiss it, because that's just not how we live nowadays in 21st century America. You can get an answer for anything.
Yeah.
We've got the sum of human knowledge just at our fingertips here. Okay.
Right.
I can pull up the works of Plato. I can probably get a damn good idea on how to do open heart surgery. I can find out anything with just a few clicks.
You can find some great air fryer recipes.
Yeah, exactly. So
disclaimer, you can try the air fryer recipes. Please do not try the open heart surgery.
But you can find anything, so that when you're presented with a mystery, some people that just ignites something in them.
Right.
Other people just shut down and it's impossible, because we would know about it by now. Mm-hmm. Well, you were saying that 10 years ago about UFOs, and it turns out we were all wrong. I was wrong. Right. I thought the whole UFO idea, well, the vastness of space and the speed of light and everything like that, you have these things, and all of a sudden you go, that's all true, but it's still happening. Same thing with Sasquatch. Well, where are the bones? I don't know. It's still happening. It's still happening. These things are still out there. Well, why is it, why has never one been killed? I don't know. Maybe one has and we just don't have it. I don't know, but it's still happening. Just these little instances that people cherry pick doesn't preclude the phenomenon from being real. And it's real. It's if you spend time out there looking for it, you realize it's real.
Yeah.
Jessi kind of dressed it up a little bit, but when we went to the LBL and had that happen, literally we're driving back in the car, and like there's just moments of silence, and then one of us, I don't remember which one, just goes, oh my God, it's real, isn't it? And we're just like, that was mind-blowing for us.
It's really when you have the realization, when you come to know, when you go from a believer to a knower, it really is like earth shattering. I mean, it's like your whole world flips upside down, and you sit there and you go over it in your head quietly over and over and over and over and over. Like, did that really just happen? Did it really just happen? It did, but you still question it because of the way you've been programmed over and over and over and for so long. When I'm out in the woods, I know something's happening, and still, even doing this over and over and over, when I hear them whistling and mimicking my whistle, or seeing something moving in the bushes, and that it's not a deer, because these bushes are 8-10 feet tall, and they're moving way at the tops of these bushes, not just a little rustle at the bottom. I mean, you start shaking back and forth, and you're hearing bipedal footsteps, and I know what's going on. I know what's there, but I still stop every time and go, well, am I really seeing this? Am I really hearing this?
Oh, yeah.
But you have to have a level of skepticism. You have to be able to say, okay, not everything is a Bigfoot. Not everything is a Dogman. And that's healthy. That's healthy. That's a good way to do
I'm
this.
famous for doing that. And when it gets to the point where I'm just making up like ridiculous explanations for what happened, We catch like spook lights, orbs, whatever you want to call them, you know, ghost lights. We catch those. I don't want to say all the time, but we've caught them more than once. And then when we review the footage and I'll kind of look at it and I'm going, all right, well, it's not a flashlight because it's not illuminating anything around it. So it's not a flashlight, a headlamp. It's not a lantern. And when I get to the point where I'm going, okay, maybe it's somebody wearing like black head to toe and they've got a glow stick that they've taped off everything except for a small. And when I get to that point, Jessi just goes, stop. At this point, your explanation is more ridiculous than the fact that we just saw just this light in the woods that seemed to behave intelligently. So, I mean, but it's good that you do that. It's good that you try to be skeptical.
You do go on these rants where you're like,
I'm famous for them. It's great.
You seem to think that there's like a hoaxing MacGyver, just like crawling through the woods.
Well, we went to this place called Lost Cove, North Carolina to check it out. And it's brutal to get down in, man. I mean, we hike all the time and it's nothing for us to do like 12, 14 miles in like a day. And it's the way you get down into this, it's an old cove that basically used to be between counties in North Carolina. So it kind of fell between legal jurisdictions and it was difficult to get through. So like moonshiners and stuff like that basically took the valley over.
There used to be roads and stuff that went there, but then there was also a train line that went through there and the train line ceased existence. So the town basically died.
So but there's still some like shacks down there. Mm-hmm. There's some remnants of human habitation, but there's just nobody down there. There's no power anywhere around there. But it was brutal to get down to, man. You're scrambling over these like rocks that are the size of bowling balls. So it's really difficult terrain. We were sore by the time we got down there. So we explored all during the day in the valley. There's nobody else down there, man. And when we're hiking back up, the way you get out is it's not a straight shot. You have to go up the side of the mountain. So you literally go back and forth. You crisscross all the way up. So you're looking down on the valley that we just got out of, and there's just all these lights dancing around. I mean, they're not fireflies. Some of them are just kind of like moving, shooting up into the treetops and disappearing. One of them shoots the length of the valley and then goes up the side of a mountain and disappears, almost like somebody had been standing there with like a supersized laser pointer, just kind of shooting it. And so I'm trying to kind of explain it away. And I'm going, all right, well, there was nobody down there and there's no other lights. And it's real rough terrain down there. And I'm going, okay, people have snuck down there and hid, and they're going around with night vision gear and they're just trying to hoax us. And Jessi's just like, are you listening to yourself right now? Because you sound like a crazy person. Okay. Just come out and just go, hey, they're weird, unexplained lights and we don't know what they are. So
I think it comes to where the paranormal explanation is like the easiest explanation.
Yeah, but some people are, but like I said, you see that with those professional skeptics. You see it with these people that will just tie themselves into like logical knots to try to deny that anything unexplained happened. There's that thing about like, don't explain one mystery with another mystery. Well, why not? Sure. I mean, maybe the answer is another mystery. Okay. Right. You don't know what it is. So you can't say that you know what the answer is to it. You might be able to eliminate some stuff. Just like I know those lights we saw weren't other people. They weren't, I don't know what they were though. And, we're familiar. We do deep dives on this stuff, man. I'm familiar with like earthquake lights and, all
ball lightning,
everything like that.
Swamp gas, all that.
None of that. It's none of that. It's none of that. I don't know what it is. And maybe one day they'll find and it seems to behave intelligently. We've had them follow us before.
We've had them respond to flashlights. Whenever we encounter lights, we'll film them as long as we can. And sometimes we'll signal to them. And we actually went to the Brown Mountain Lights about, what was that, a month ago? A little over a month ago. We went and we got probably some of the best footage of the Brown Mountain Lights that have ever been taken.
Oh, it was crazy.
And because we have the tech to do this stuff, and we have the technology to go out there and gather this evidence in the way it needs to be gathered. And I think that's a lot of the times, if you're the right person at the right time with the right technology, you can get evidence of these things, solid evidence. But we went out to see the Brown Mountain Lights, and we went kind of on a whim for a weekend. And we went out there. It was a full moon. And we went out there. We actually live streamed the whole thing when we went out there, and I filmed it. And we got these lights coming out of the mountain, and they behaved so strangely. But yet you have all of these people saying it's swamp gas, but we have footage of all of that. But we filmed that for a while. We did our live stream. And then towards the end there, we do what we usually do. We try to signal the lights. Now, in Lost Cove, the story he was telling you about, the abandoned town, we signaled them and they kind of flashed back in a way. When we fast forward to the Brown Mountain Lights, we were there, we signal it, and it all just stopped.
Just stopped like a light switch.
So there's some sort of like, and I think both are intelligent responses in a way, you know.
But it's weird. I saw that the comment you put up here by Bernard Gannon, accredited serious physicists now believe they can prove multiple dimensions exist. Is this the veil? Well, you know, when you have these people that just go, when you hear some of the stranger like witness encounters, some of the stuff with like, especially with like UFO activity, or even some of the stranger stuff with Sasquatch, like, you know, mind speak and like portals and cloaking and everything like that. And they go, well, that's physically impossible. And I'm going, no, it's really not. It's not at all. It's, I mean, and I forget her name every time I tell this story, but there's a lady who's like one of the world's foremost authorities on kind of the weirder side of like quantum mechanics, on just some of the weird stuff that you witness on a quantum level. Things, you know, particles that seem to affect each other no matter what distance is between the two of them, like quantum entanglement. It seems to be impossible, but it happens, and it happens all the time. And for years, she would go, well, you know, just because this happens on a quantum level, this isn't an explanation for any of the weird stories that people tell. Just because this happens on a quantum level doesn't mean that it happens like in our dimension, you know, the real world. And then I remember an interviewer asked her one time, went, well, why is that? What's keeping it from happening here? And she goes, well, it just doesn't. It's impossible. And he goes, why? And she's like, hell, I guess you're right. I guess it's not impossible. And I'm going, yeah, because if you look at some of the stuff that happens, there's a physical explanation for it. You know, you may not see it every day, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. You know, everything from like quantum entanglement. I've got a real big thing on like infrasound. I don't necessarily think that infrasound is what causes the effects that people report. I know it happens because I've seen it happen to her before. It happened to Martin Groves. He's told me that story several times. Something's happened. I don't think it's a sound wave. I think there's a thing called quantum vibration that has an effect on you, that could potentially or theoretically have an effect on you. So when you look at this stuff, for when people that just kind of trot out, they act like they know what the physical world is capable of. I'm going, no, the physical world's a lot weirder than what you're willing to admit. You know, your day-to-day life may not be this strange. It may be pretty mundane, but that's normalcy bias. Just because you wake up every day and everything's all right doesn't mean that one day you wake up and it's not. You know?
Right.
Yeah, we could have some Sasquatch black swan event, you know?
Exactly. So
I want to know more about this. This quantum, what did you call it? It's
quantum vibration. It's what happened is that, like almost everything with this, like an online argument one time with somebody, because I'm just going, everybody is just, all right, so you have to address infrasound, the idea of infrasound. That's one of those like Bigfoot tropes that everybody just kind of takes part and parcel. You've heard somebody say, I was hit with infrasound.
I was zapped.
Yeah. And the zap thing is real. That's real. I just don't think that the mechanics for causing it are what people think it is. And that means that you're opening up a whole new, you know, can of worms. It gets weirder at that point. But I started doing like a real deep dive on like infrasound to find out like how it worked. Talk to like bioacousticians, people that you know work with animals and study the way that they communicate with different like frequencies of sound. Started looking at like, you know, and there used to be few and far between. There's more actual scientific study going on with like sound and the effects that it has on people. But there's a lot of stuff that just somebody heard and repeated, and then that's gospel truth now at this point.
Right.
We even, as a side note, we actually had a piece of infrasound detection equipment built that we can actually take into the field to measure if there is actually infrasound in the environment around us.
Because there's a lot of things that cause infrasound. There's thunderstorms will cause infrasound, earthquakes.
The ocean produces
The ocean causes it. Before you even get into any sort of like, you know, biological life, there's a lot of natural phenomenon that cause infrasound. One of the things that causes infrasound is meteorites entering the atmosphere. So a lot of amateur astronomers will use equipment to try to catch brief spikes of infrasound and then try to figure out where in the sky this meteorite might have entered into. So there's a little company up in Virginia that makes equipment for them. And they also make equipment for people who study elephants in, these huge national parks in Africa.
Because, and the effects of wind farms.
Yeah, and the effects of wind farms on people. But they make this infrasound equipment. So I track these people down. It's this little 2-man company up in Waynesboro, Virginia. And I start up a conversation with them. And I'm going, hey, I really like the equipment that you put out, but hypothetically speaking, say somebody needed one and they needed to be a little bit more durable and portable and have the ability to work like this. And then the guy finally is just like, what are you using it for? And I'm just like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm using it for Sasquatch research, man. The guy didn't even miss a beat. He didn't even miss a beat. And he's like, all right, yeah, I can do that. So we've got an infrasound detector that detects any sort of sound waves under 20 hertz, and will give you the amplitude of it. Because again, if people,
it graphs everything.
Yeah, if people are being affected by infrasound, it's got to be really strong because there's infrasound around you all the time, and it doesn't have that physical effect on you. It doesn't cause the nausea and the confusion and the fainting and the physical discomfort and all of that it causes. And people will tell you, oh, well, tigers use it for hunting. That was an offhand comment that somebody made about 20 years ago. About a tiger, and then since then there's been actual scientific research that goes forward saying that that's not the case. So we got this equipment to start testing for infrasound because I'm going. If you look at some of the symptoms that people have reported, you're going to see a lot of similarities between a couple of things. You're going to see a lot of similarities between people like Martin Groves, who encountered upright canine creatures and then things that we're just going to call Sasquatch. And he and his hunting partner that day experienced some extreme physical reactions to that. Well, you can see pretty much damn near the exact same thing with a lot of the people that are coming forward with UAP encounters right now. How is the analogy I always like to use is that right now I'm speaking to you into this microphone, but Jessi can hear me as well. That's how sound travels. I don't have the ability to just speak here and only the microphone gets it, and then Jessi can't hear it. So you hear about these people that are hit with infrasound, but then somebody 5 feet away, nothing happens to them. If you look at the effects that people report, it's a lot closer to extremely high electromagnetic fields, sometimes ionizing radiation. Now, how does that tie in with a large undiscovered ape in North America? I have no clue. But at the same token, just because you think it's impossible doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue that. And that's one of the things that I've found really troubling with all this, is because I don't have a logical answer as to how that's possible.
There's no real point of reference for a supposedly natural animal producing radiation.
An undiscovered animal is what a lot of people like to think that is producing this effect. But it's weird because, we talked about how people like to have everything that can answer for everything. They like to have it in a very easily compartmentalized box. You see that with Sasquatch more than anything else. You see people talk about, well, it had self-illuminating eyes. There was no light to reflect back, but its eyes glowed. And then somebody ties on to bioluminescence. Well, yeah, that occurs in fish and insects. Doesn't occur in mammals. And if it did occur in mammals, it's not going to occur in your eye. Your eye is a photoreceptor. It takes light in. It doesn't emit light. You'd basically be functionally blind at that point if you were doing that. It's not a natural animal. And you just see people kind of grab onto these things that happen in the natural world to try to come up with an explanation for just some of the stuff that's just weird and doesn't make sense. And I think it's time for a lot of people just to kind of go, it's not infrasound, it's not bioluminescence, it's not all these things that people have just kind of grasped onto to make it seem more normal than it is.
Because it's not normal at all.
It's not normal at all. And I don't have an answer. And guess what? And I don't have an answer for what's causing it. But I can tell you that if you're telling me that this is an undiscovered ape with this evolutionary feature that its eyes glow on its own, tell me how evolution ended up in that direction. Tell me how that's an evolutionary benefit to its environment for that to happen. Tell me how this undiscovered ape can use sound waves in a way that no other animal on Earth can. Whales use infrasound to communicate over hundreds of miles. Okay. Water's a much better, and I'm kind of nerding out right now, but water's a much better conductor of sound than air is. Okay.
Sure.
You don't hear about marine biologists bobbling up to the water, unconscious when they're around whales. And
Jacques Cousteau lived a very long life.
Yeah, exactly. So if that's and Sasquatch are supposedly much smaller with a smaller lung capacity than blue whales are. So it doesn't make sense, but it's one of those things where somebody's just tried to pigeonhole it into being more normal than it is,
Yep.
And we talked a little bit about this. Sometimes it's confusing and frustrating, man, because you keep branching off into weirder and weirder directions, and you're not trying to just like let your imagination run with you, but you are trying to look at the data and then just go, even if I don't like where the data is taking me to, even if I'm not comfortable with where it's taking me to, I can do one of two things right now. I can either ignore it, and now I'm that person who had something weird happen to them in the woods, and they're going to explain it away with anything other than what really happened. They ran into a Sasquatch, just like you in the bushes. It's not a deer, but you're going to explain it away with a deer just because that's the comfortable answer.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this stuff's not comfortable. A lot of this doesn't give you any answers. It just takes you in weirder directions.
And some of it actually just keeps you up at night because it's
Exactly,
terrifying that
Yeah.
some of this is real. The
Yeah.
capabilities of whatever this is real. And then it's almost more comforting if you think of Sasquatch as an undiscovered ape. That's a lot more comforting to me than this might be some sort of interdimensional
thing
creature
or something. And you know what? Maybe it is it's weird because like the last 5-6 years has been like a master class and some of the weirdest stuff like out there. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Sure.
these theories that I used to just kind of go, come on, man, that's crazy. Now I'm going, I can't call it crazy anymore, man. I'm not saying it makes sense, but again, you get down to this. I mean, you've got people that go, I've been zapped for whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? I've been zapped. I've suffered these, and people are with them. They watch them have these effects. They watch them go through these physical symptoms. There's no denying it.
Happened to me on live. Like 3 months ago.
Really? So
and like the hardest time was the only time it's ever happened to me, and I was freaking out because I thought I was going to pass out, and I kept telling people in the chat like, I'm not okay right now.
Did you have any equipment like disruption, like interference or anything like that, or battery drain?
I had battery drainage.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was the only thing that happened to the equipment. The other thing was the signal kept going in and out.
That's electrical. That's interference.
Yeah, it's electrical. A sound wave doesn't do that.
A sound wave's not going to do that.
Electrical interference will.
Sound wave's a vibration. It's a mechanical wave for those of us who took physics in college, and it's not going to cause equipment disruption. But you know what will though? High electromagnetic fields, ionizing radiation in certain levels will, even really strong like RF, like radio frequency waves will cause that. One of the things that people always talk about are those like equipment drains in some of these areas. We've experienced it several times.
Mm-hmm.
Science is good for a lot of stuff, and you can go out and look and see people that will go, yes, if you take a battery and put it into an area with an extremely high electromagnetic field, you're going to see it interact with basically the internal components of that battery, and the charge will diminish in a much quicker rate than you would normally expect it to be. So you wouldn't see that with sound. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's pretty cool because we've got this ability to detect and monitor infrasound right now. And guess what? Here's the deal. A year from now, I might be singing a completely different tune.
Yeah.
A year from now, I might be going,
because we might be out there
finding massive spikes of infrasound
and then receiving physical effects. Now, if that happens, then we have to change our data set. We have to change the hypothesis and kind of evolve it that way. But that's part of the fun of doing this. That's part of the excitement of doing this.
Oh yeah, exactly.
We've not been doing this for 40 years or whatever. We have so much time to investigate this and evolve our theories and look at how things are going to advance in the future. And it's okay to go with that, not have one moment of something happening and then ride it for the rest of your life. I think it's very important to constantly dig into this and constantly try to turn over these new stones.
And I see a comment in the chat. Janelle Lee had asked, what about infrasound when vocals are analyzed? My question is this, it goes back to that original argument I had online right now, is how have they been analyzed? You can't pick up infrasound with commercially available recording equipment. It's below. Commercially available recording equipment is designed to capture audio for a human to hear later. So it's tied into that frequency that humans can hear at. If you've got a 5 hertz sound wave, if you've got like real deep infrasound, Your camera, your digital audio recorder, none of that's going to pick it up. You have to have specialized equipment to do that.
That's why we had to have specialized equipment.
I had to have specialized equipment built, and it wasn't cheap. And it's whether that's going to be, maybe we're going to disprove something, or maybe we come back and go, all right, here's what's up. We're experiencing really weird activity. And when that weird activity happens, this infrasound detector is going off extremely high. One of the things we're really big at is you see everybody using equipment online. You know, everybody's got a tri-field meter and all that. And with this, I'm going, you've got to know how the equipment works. So right now we're still kind of in the getting to know you phase with this equipment. You know, we're figuring out what sort of infrasound we can expect from a helicopter going overhead, or a thunderstorm rolling in, or minor geological like disturbances, really low earthquakes that you don't even feel. Well, those will generate infrasound. So like I said, it's just one of those things where I'm just going, you don't know whether it's there or not until you test for it or look for it. Yeah. And that's what we kind of try to pride ourselves in doing, is that we do. If there's one thing we're good at, I mean, I don't think we're the smartest people, and there's people out there that are much better investigators, if you want to say that. But I think if there's one good thing that we're decent at, it's thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
And trying to take a novel approach to some of this stuff. Because Jessi says it all the time. People have been banging on, sticks, trees with sticks and howling at the moon for 40 years. And we're no further along than we were. It seems like everything peaked with the Patterson-Gimlin film. We've gone no further since then. So it's time to, and guess what? We do some stuff that we go, all right, well, that didn't work. Let's move on to something else, But at least we
it's
tried,
important to try,
Yeah, of course.
And listen, we're not knocking the knocking. But if that's something you have success with, if that's something you do and enjoy doing and seem to have I'm terrible at it because I can't ever select a good stick.
Yes,
that's the hardest part.
Breakable sticks.
So. Every stick I choose, I'm a terrible stick selector. Every time I try to do that, my stick, I go and it just smashes. So I've avoided that at all costs.
But here's the deal: is that this stuff's happening. People are having mind speak. People are having it happen.
Right.
You're having people who, Les Stroud, Survivor Man, caught a great deal of grief, and it really hurt his regular career for him to come out and go, I had mind speak happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's happening. It's not even impossible by our scientific standards, but it's not something that happens all the time, but it happens. People are experiencing mind speak. People are experiencing things, whether you want to call it cloak or go through whatever you want to say it is, people are experiencing it. Yep. And it's not just them. It goes back to those UAP releases. There are people who are basically on the government payroll mimicking and reporting the exact same stuff that people are being laughed at for talking about on social media.
Yes.
Somebody goes, it mind speaks to me. And everybody just laughs at them. All right, well then fine. Tell me how this person who has a doctorate in electrical engineering and is hired by the government because they have a skeptical nature to look into this stuff, and they're reporting the exact same thing. It happens. Yep. So let's start to kind of think outside the box to see if we can learn anything about it. And again, we may learn a little bit about it and never get a definitive answer, but at least we're a little bit further along than we were, before.
And we're trying to throw a bunch of different stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
And like I said, this is weird for me because again, 10 years ago, I thought all this stuff was ridiculous. I thought all of this was ridiculous. And before we went to the LBL, it was weird because we kind of laughed about it. It was a running joke for us.
Talking about the Dogman subject.
Dogman Summer is what we were going to call it. We were just going to go check out places for dog that were known for Dogman and basically just laugh about it. Right around that time, we started getting reports from just north of us. This little strip of North Carolina starting around Blowing Rock and then going southeast. Just dozens of people that none of them knew each other. And all of them are and it's weird. Sometimes I would even go, why did this person choose to reach out for us? If you want to think about serendipity or whatever, but it was happening. We were getting all of these reports of people reporting upright, canines.
And we had not really received any prior to this.
Yeah.
It just started happening one right after the other. And these people are completely independent of each other, but they're all kind of in a row down the center of North Carolina.
Yeah. And we're even going, it's my go back was it's misidentified Sasquatch. Somebody saw a Sasquatch and it's just the topic of Dogman's getting popular now, or people are just going crazy. Well, we started meeting some of these people and I'm just going, You know, I don't know if our friend who runs Cryptid Response is in here, but he eventually started his own group after his experience. That's as trustworthy of a guy as you'll ever meet in your entire life. And that's when we really kind of started taking it seriously. And then we decided to go to the LBL, but even then it was more just like a sightseeing trip.
Yeah, we almost was like a crypto tourism.
Because it's, crypto tourism, just because it factors so big and so many stories.
And we wanted to really get on the ground at the LBL. We wanted to see what the layout was, because you hear all of these stories about the LBL. You hear all of these accounts, all of these stories, and you can kind of imagine it and kind of put it together in your head. And you know how you always kind of think of what you think it'll look like, what you think it'll be like on the ground, but you're never going to know unless you're actually there. So that's why we decided, all right, screw it. Let's just go. Let's drive the 8 hours. Let's go to the LBL. Let's go check it out for ourselves. Let's go look at these sites and figure out if this is something that could be a possibility.
Yeah. And we got there, and it's not only is it a possibility, but there's something going on with that. There's people are reporting these things, and they're there. I don't know where they come from. I don't know where they go to, but they're there. We were down near, and you're familiar with the main LBL story, the 1982 massacre, right?
Of course. Yeah.
All right. So, you know, the story, the family, the father, mother, 2 kids go there. So we get out there and we're just kind of like hiking around. That's our thing. We like to get out there and look at stuff ourselves, walk that same ground. When we do field investigations, especially the ones that we do at night, we don't set up stationary anywhere. The few times we've tried that, we don't really ever get any success from it. It's happened a few times, but it seems like we get the most luck just putting some packs on and just going through the woods at night. And I don't think you're sneaking up on anything out there. Humans don't move very well through the woods at night, but no. I always go, maybe we're going to piss something off, make something curious, or just get lucky,
Yeah.
So we're walking down just a little ways away from the bunkers that you always hear about. And it was funny because we had a thermal imager, but we had a crappy one. And we decided to use the LBL as like an excuse to get like a really nice, expensive thermal scope,
Yeah.
So we had just been at this power line cut looking at deer in the distance with this new thermal monocular, talking about how great it was and how much better it was than our old crappy one. So we go back through, we're moving through the woods, and the night has just been like silent. It's just nothing going on. And it's middle of summer. As a matter of fact, it was the night before Midsummer's Night. So like smack dab middle of summer, it just dead quiet. We start hearing something bust through the brush to the side of us. Now, our usual MO when that happens is one of us will focus on the sound and the other one starts checking the sides and the back.
Yeah, we immediately go back to back and that way we can get kind of a 360 view, but that's kind of our protocol.
So Jessi's focusing on the noise because it stopped, and it might have been a deer. We never saw what that was. We never saw what it was. If it was a deer, it was staying pretty well hidden for a deer to be that close, but that's still not outside the realm of possibility. But I've got this thermal monocular that we had literally just got. We were even worried it wasn't going to show up in time before we left for LBL. And it showed up like the day before. I had enough chance to kind of like look at the instruction manual, get the batteries charged, and we were off. But so I'm scanning and I've got this thing up to my eye and I'm going from like right to left. And I go past and I go back and I'm looking at this thermal image. It's body heat. It's hot body heat because we're in Kentucky in the middle of summer. So everything's hot. The sun's just gone down, but the trees are still hot. The earth's still hot. Everything's still hot. And this is way hotter than all of that. And I'm like literally going, what am I looking at here? And I snap a photo with the monocular and it moves. And I'm like, what the heck? Snap another photo. And then my flashlight's hanging from a lanyard from my left hand. I try to flip it up so I can get eyes on it. And then it's just gone. And I didn't even really say anything to her at that moment. I was like, I think we just need to move on a little bit, get out of this area. And it wasn't until later that I showed her these images. And so this is something, it brought something really to home to me that night, is that we were there looking for an upright canine. Okay. Mm-hmm. I had in my mind, because we had done a little bit of research on it, but again, Dogman hadn't been something we were really, really into. And I'm thinking like werewolf, like a TV or movie werewolf.
Yeah.
And what I was looking at didn't give me that impression, or didn't scream werewolf to me, because the defining feature of these 2 really oversized pointed ears. I'm looking at it going, is that a giant bat or something? These look like oversized pointed bat ears. And it wasn't until I talked to like Martin Nunley and showed him the photos. And he started sending me witness sketches. And the defining feature on all of these witness sketches from the quote unquote beasts of LBL were these really large, oversized, pointed ears. And that's when I went, I can't say I saw a Dogman. I can't say I captured a thermal of a Dogman, but I can say that I captured a thermal of whatever it is that's causing these stories that people are seeing. Then you flash forward to Martin Grove's story that comes out, and one of the defining features he talks about are these large, oversized, pointed ears.
Yep.
So you go, where's the physical evidence? Well, again, I don't have full color footage of a Dogman or an upright canine, but we've got a thermal image of something that matches that physical description, scoping us out.
2 thermal images, and there's a movement between them.
Movement between the 2 of them. We went back the next day in the daylight because I was only seeing like the upper half of it. That's why I couldn't quite comprehend what I was seeing. Well, it's sticking its head out of a ditch. There's like a 6-foot gully there. I'm 6'3", so I got in there and it looked like it was leaning against the side of it, kind of poking its head out over us. And this is just conjecture at this point, but I think that because we weren't using visible flashlights, it didn't think we could see it. A thermal imager doesn't emit anything. It doesn't emit infrared. It's passive. And I think that when I stopped and started looking at it, it started to realize I could see it. And then when I fumbled, it dropped back into this ditch. And it either moved off or it was just hunched down in the ditch when we decided to hike out. But I'm looking at it just going, we're out looking for this stuff. And we're prepared to try to find this. And I even then had this moment of like, what am I looking at here? It just boggled my mind at that point. So,
and all of this is included in our first 2 videos from our LBL series that we have, because this was from our first trip to the LBL. It's our very first trip to the LBL. I have a 2-part series in that, so you can see all of this in those videos.
Yeah, if you guys aren't subscribed and you're not watching, please go watch. It's just some riveting stuff. The tech that you guys use is amazing. A lot. It's got to be. God, I wish I could afford some of it. That's probably.
Well, it's weird. We started off when we decided to try to because again, I'd done Sasquatch research for years. I had a sighting of something when I was a kid, and then nothing else happened to me after that. She had experienced a lot of paranormal stuff and kind of drifted in that direction. But for me, it's weird. I lived in Louisiana for a while, and supposedly that Louisiana-Texas corridor is like Monster Central. I never experienced anything down there. Honey Island, nothing like that. We both are from like small Appalachian mountain towns, so we moved back up to the Southern Appalachians, and that's when we started to experience stuff. And we decided after one really weird encounter that we were going to basically try to document it. Okay. We've got a friend who runs a thing called Central Florida Bigfoot, and he's a photojournalist, and he often goes, I'm not a researcher. I'm trying to capture photographic evidence. I'm approaching this like a photojournalist.
Yeah.
That's kind of the tactic we take, Yeah. We're a little bit more tech heavy, but at the end of the day, we're just trying to capture something. We may not even know what we captured, but we're just trying to capture something to kind of advance it beyond those campfire stories that a lot of people tell. But we just started, it's weird because a lot of times it feels like we're chasing these things with tech because we'll have something happen and we're unable to capture it as well as we thought we would like to. So then we're like, we need this, you know what I'm saying? So, and we just add like a little piece at a time, man. It's just like the zapping phenomenon. We may not know exactly what that is, but that may be detectable by certain pieces of equipment. So you start seeing it happen and then you get certain readings. Well, then that's backing up the story that somebody's telling. You know what I'm saying? It's not all in their mind all of a sudden because there was a change in the physical environment when it happened. And here we're able to document it here. And that's been really, if you told me 10 years ago, I'd be running around the woods with like a Geiger counter and spectrum analyzers and stuff like that, I would have told you you're crazy, but we've been in the middle of nowhere and we've had weird stuff happen and then start getting weird readings on the equipment for God's. And I don't know what that means, but they're obviously tied together.
And the best thing we can do right now is just collect that data and use what we have to collect that data and eventually get more stuff because we always, like he said, we're constantly chasing it with tech. We'll have something happen and we're like, oh, if only we had this, we could get it.
And then even with the stuff we've got, it's still frustrating, man, because we're on foot. It's what we can fit on our backpack.
And there's only 2 of us.
Yeah. And we've still got to carry water, food, first aid, protection, everything.
And then
like
I still have to document everything.
We're trying to film. And maybe that night you brought the tri-field meter and you needed something else, and you just don't have it, or it's buried in the bottom of your backpack. So by the time you get it out, it's gone. It's over with, you know? So a lot of the times you're just basically throwing a dart at the board. Let's see what sticks. Let's see if we, you know, we take out the right stuff tonight. But like I said, it's a certain level of frustration to it. But, you know, sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes you get lucky and you've got that right piece of equipment to capture what's going on at that moment.
Yeah.
So.
I have to go back when you were talking about how sound travels, and you said, you know, when you speak, you don't just speak right here. And I want to relate it to these spook lights, because when you're talking about how things are supposed to behave, light is not supposed to be encompassed just inside of something. If
self-contained lights, exactly.
If that lights up, it should be lighting up everything around it.
Yes, the trees, the ground. Yes,
we had probably the weirdest thing that's ever happened to us. We were originally doing Sasquatch research in this particular area of the mountains in North Georgia, and it was never really threatening phenomena. It was frustrating a lot of times. If anything, I would always just go, it's like almost like we're dealing with like a trickster entity.
Yeah.
We would go in geared up for like a Bigfoot hunt. You know, we got tape measures and plaster to, like, you know, do foot casts and everything like that. And then we just have literally what you would just consider, if we were in a house, you'd consider it spirit activity, but we're in the woods, you know. So we would go out the next time geared up for a ghost hunt, and we'd start finding footprints and hearing like tree knocks. I mean, we literally heard like chest beating one night, that rhythmic, real quick, that gorillas do. I don't think these things are gorillas. Why did I hear that? But we were researching in this area, and all of a sudden it was just like one day the switch got flipped. It just stopped. The activity stopped and never came back. So we started kind of just exploring out just a little bit further, you know, every week going out a little bit further. And we happened across this spot in North Georgia that people tell us all the time that, oh, you're dealing with Sasquatch up there. And I'm going, I don't really think so, because everything that we've dealt with up here, it's strange activity in the woods. To me, that doesn't translate into Sasquatch. I think there's other strange things going on.
I think that's the first leap that a lot of people make, is when you're in the woods and you experience things like that, the first kind of connection you would make is, oh, this is weird. This is out of the ordinary. What I'm dealing with is a Sasquatch. A Sasquatch is in the woods. That's where they belong. That's what is here.
Do you think it's because it's the most acceptable cryptid
so.
at this point?
It's people's default answer to it. Even
it's
people that are involved in this stuff. Yeah. Ghosts happen inside four walls, or maybe you'll occasionally have that haunted location. Sasquatch happens in the woods. Kind of go off on a tangent, but if you look at a lot of like Class B encounters, Class B Sasquatch encounters, weird smells, stuff being thrown at you, weird noises, screams. If that was happening in a house, you'd think that you needed to call an exorcist. You know? Just because it's happening in the woods, people default to Sasquatch.
And we don't think that ghost activity is confined to four walls. We think that
definitely not.
We think that the woods can absolutely be haunted.
Well,
and
I have it right
here. A lot of it is.
Yeah, but
there's a battlefield right down the road from my house that has paranormal activity. It's all open. It's outside. I mean,
but back to the self-contained light. So in that area, the last time we were up there, well, we've been back twice, I think, since then. We'd gone into this one area that we've caught some crazy audio in. We've seen what looks like disembodied, like glowing eyes. We've had all sorts of weird stuff happen up there. Literally, almost every weird thing that you could think of happening has happened to us up there, and it's been a running joke where people are going, "You're eventually going to run into UFOs," and I'm like, "That's where I draw the line, man. I'm not going out like Travis Walton. I'm just UFOs. I'm done." Just because that's really outside of our ability to really do anything to. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's you got to know your limitations, and that's beyond our limitations. But
could you do something to a dog, man?
You know, I mean, there's reports of these things being killed, you know, reports of these things being shot.
True, yeah.
And then there's other reports saying that they're immune to gunfire. So I don't know. I mean,
silver bullet.
But we're leaving out one night because we just had a real frustrating night. Nothing happened at all. We were fighting the equipment. We're leaving, and it's the same. There's a whole network of old logging roads and old forestry service roads that are not maintained up there. Some of them are no longer passable. So we've got one good road to take to get in and out of this whole like network. So we're going down this road. We've driven 100 times, and we just look up to our right, and we just noticed this little cut between these hills, and it's nighttime. I don't know why we noticed it then. We've never noticed it before. And I'm going, it's early still. Let's pop out here real quick and just see where this is at. Let's see what we got up here. We just hop out. We just got a couple pieces of equipment with us. We did not even have a GPS. And it's weird because we always harp on, when you do this, you should have
a personal locator beacon.
Personal locator beacon. The missing 411 stuff that David Pilates always talks about. Don't go alone, go armed, and have a personal locator beacon. Well, we try to stick to those. So we just go up the hill a little bit, and we're looking around. Jessi thought she saw something jump from one tree to another, but it wasn't that big. Because Jessi's got a thermal, and then I've got a full spectrum camera. And we're just walking around talking up there, going, all right, we need to come back and check this place out during the daytime. And we've got this on film. I mean, luckily we were rolling. We're getting ready to leave. And Jessi goes, what's that? And I'm like, what's what? And she's like, what's that? And there's this ball of, it looked like a burning ball of like light just amidst the trees. And I'm going, I don't know what that is. So we were able to get it on full spectrum. We were also able to get it on thermal.
Yeah, I remembered I had my thermal on my belt. So I was like, take the camera, and I pulled out my thermal. And so I simultaneously record it with the full spectrum camera and the thermal. And all of this footage, again, I'm gonna plug a video here. All of this footage is in the video titled A Burning Light on our channel. Yeah. So you can see what I describe it as a portal. It looks like a portal to me.
But it's bright as hell, and it's not lighting anything up around it. It was sizable.
It was huge.
Well, let me put it to you like this. That camera that we were using is a Phasm full spectrum camera. It's made for ghost hunters. It's made to basically be used indoors. It works really good short range, but a lot of times we'll see like spook lights. We won't be able to get them just because they're little glimmers of light.
Yeah.
This was bright enough for us to get it.
And that was big enough for us to get it
120 yards or so, roughly. We were still able to get it with the full spectrum, which is like unheard of.
So that means it was huge. It was probably 12, 15 feet in diameter.
It wasn't lighting anything up around it. It wasn't lighting anything up around it. And people have gone, oh, it was just somebody out there with a lantern messing with you. And I'm going, so they make lanterns? That the whole purpose of a lantern is to light up the area around it. So you can see where are these lanterns that don't light up anything around it. Where are these flashlights that do that?
Where can I get one?
And for it to be as big as it was, and it was giving off heat.
It was giving off extreme
amounts of heat. And because we got that on the thermal. Luckily, Jessi had the presence of mind to start rolling footage with the thermal imager, and we were able to get that. But yeah, I mean, that's my thing. I can't wrap my head around because I'm looking at it and going, these little flickering ghost lights are one thing. These little lights you see dancing in the trees. You can maybe explain those away. Out of season fireflies, anything like that. They don't behave like fireflies. They don't look like fireflies, but you could still, with a stretch, explain them away. There's no explanation for this. No. There's no explanation for this light that's just hovering right above the ground. And if you watch that video,
At one point, didn't you say you thought you saw people?
Yeah, well, that's where I'm going to it. We both had. No. I mean, I'm agreeing with you. I saw people. We both had instant visceral responses to it. You hear Jessi go, I feel like I need to go towards it.
Yeah.
And I'm going, hell no, we're not going towards it because I'm a foot taller than her. So I've got a little bit better vantage point. It's not really lighting anything up around it, but there's like a bare nimbus of like light around it. And there's something around the base of it that's going from left to right. And I'm going, and it looks like figures. And I'm like, I think I see people around it, and then I'm just going, all right, your mind's struggling to process it. I'm going, maybe there's somebody camped over there. And I'm going, but this isn't a campfire. It doesn't, I mean, if you look at a campfire on a thermal imager, you're looking at a fire. You're catching everything.
Also prior to me seeing this in the woods, I had walked 5 feet before I saw it. I was standing in one position and I spun around three times.
Didn't see anything.
With my thermal, and I didn't see anything in the woods around us. I walked 5 feet and then there's this giant.
And there it is. It's giant. Yeah. And it's just a ball. And you see it in the video. We're kind of arguing about it a little bit because we're in this strange area. For some reason, we didn't bring our GPS. We were just getting out to look. And that's just so unlike us, but that's just what happened. And all I'm thinking is that if there are figures around this, people, whatever, now all of a sudden you've got a maybe flesh and blood on the ground type element to this as well. And we're in woods we don't know. It's pitch black. The terrain's really rough. And we start to leave out. And as we start to leave out, it's lifting up into the air. And my whole thing is that where were the figures that were with it? Are the figures leaving with it? Are the figures already gone? Or is this lifting up in the air and these things are spreading out around us at that point? So we got the hell out. But to your point, it was the brightest light I've ever seen that didn't illuminate anything beyond maybe a couple inches around it. Yeah, that should have lit up the entire forest. We went back with like flashlights and lanterns and everything like that.
We tried to recreate it with all of the things that we could think of that you would say, oh, it's a fire, it's a flashlight, it's a lantern. So we went back at night, went into that position. One of us stayed where we were standing when we got this footage. The other one went to the location of where the light was. And we experimented with all of those. And the footage looks nothing like what we got that night when we got that portal.
The flashlights that we tested look exactly like flashlights. They shoot a beam of light that lights up everything in front of them. The LED lanterns and the propane lanterns light up stuff around it.
Mm-hmm. And everything has kind of a halo to it. This thing didn't have a halo at all.
Yeah, it's just bizarre. And if you look at the thermal footage is just weird. We've got a friend of ours who watches our channel a lot that just went like super in depth, like going frame by frame and blowing it up and sharpening and everything like that. And he's found some weird stuff in it, man, that this ball of light was giving off some really weird heat patterns. And at one point with the thermal, it looks like there's the ball of light here and it looks like something's peeking around a tree at us. It's the weirdest thing ever. I mean, and what is it? I have no clue. You know what I'm saying? I have no clue. But I know what it's not. It wasn't campers. It wasn't anybody hoaxing us. To that point, somebody to hoax us, they dropped some serious coin on a hilltop that we've never gone to before, not knowing that we were going to be there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We randomly got out of the car and just like hiked up there. And it's completely implausible.
Well, I'll tell you what, you guys are, you're number one, you're incredibly brave. I don't care what anybody says. Maybe you're different, but, doesn't matter how many times I go out in the woods. It doesn't. When things start to happen, it's scary. It's nerve-wracking, and
definitely.
You have to fight every visceral feeling inside of you that tells you to run, to back off, to not go near that, to go the other way. And you know, it takes. Not everybody can do this stuff. It's just not for everybody. And what you guys are doing, going into this place over and over and over again, after having experiences like this, man, it's just amazing. It's one of the reasons I love the channel. That's one of my favorite videos. That I've watched that video over and over because it's just so crazy.
Yeah, it's insane.
The reactions that you guys have, and Jessi,
keep in mind,
I'm going to it.
We're out looking for this stuff, and we're dumbstruck when some of it happens. So no matter how prepared you are for that, come on, man. I started off as a Bigfoot hunter. I didn't go out going, hey, I want to go try to find possible portals with figures circling around the bottom of it. Who does that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that's what I experienced, and I can't lie to myself, especially when the camera and the thermal imager are backing up exactly what I saw with my own eyes.
Yeah.
And it's weird you talked about bravery because everybody's got their own little Achilles heel. I mean, Jessi got bluff charged one night. We don't know by what, but by something. You know, and then we got paced out of the woods back to the vehicle. I left her in the vehicle to get the vehicle started. I went back in the woods by myself. You know, I'm like, I'm either going to like get a look at it or something's going to happen. You know, I'm not getting chased out of here. I got no problem with that, but that light that she's just wanting to run right to, I'm going, no way in hell, man. I'm not going anywhere near it. I want to get out of here right now because this is just something that's beyond me. You know, this is something that is just that I don't have a point of reference for, but it's real. It's real.
We mentioned earlier that we just gotten back. We just got back from the LBL. We've been back a week now, right? Yeah. So we went to the LBL. We've been back a week. We filmed the whole time we were up there. We went to an area where I don't know if you saw this, but it was in the 3-part series we did in the winter time called the Werewolf Experiments.
Yes.
We found an abandoned tent out there.
Yep.
And there's claw marks on the tree. The tent looks like it was just torn open. And the person's effects are just strewn about all around where that tent was. We went back to that area. We actually did like a live stream from that spot. The signal was so bad you can't really see anything. But we went back to that spot this year during this trip and checked it out and kind of came up with some new theories. We found another site where something had happened. And we found it deep in the woods, and we've got all of that filmed and everything. So we'll be sharing that on our channel eventually. But while we were there, we're standing there, and you know how you mentioned that you get scared. This is the middle of the day, and during that first during those three video series, Werewolf Experiments, Joe and I each on separate occasions see this thing in the woods that's very dark, very lanky. It's very unnatural, but we see it on separate occasions. When we're out there, and we have our reactions on there and everything like that, because I was filming the entire time. So we go back this time a week ago, and we find another tent and another scene of something that had happened there. And Joe's over there filming it and looking at it. And I'm up on the hill, and I see the thing, whatever that is, that dark shape, that figure, that lanky thing down that way. And it's like I had such an adrenaline rush because it just moved and like disappeared. And I had this just insane adrenaline rush. He had to run over and make me kind of sit down because I'm just, if you ever get a real hard adrenaline dump, just you kind of go kind of catatonic and you go into like a state of shock. You can't really move very well or breathe. So you're just kind of like that.
And
He put me against a tree and was kind of walking around and stuff, but I had to kind of get it together because you see something like that and it's a complete just shock to your system. You just get that adrenaline dump. And so like this happens to us when we had these things happen to us. This is not the first time it's happened, and you have to deal with the consequences of your body reacting in that fight or flight mode. But you can see that on a lot of our videos when we have sort of like real up close encounters with things, as we'll have that just crazy adrenaline dump. And so it's terrifying. It's terrifying that we do this. But what else are we going to do now that we know these things exist and all this is out there? Are we supposed to not go do this? I mean, that's not an option for us now.
Yeah. I mean, people always are just like, you're going to die out there doing this. And I'm like, I could get hit by a bus crossing the street tomorrow, man. It's just, and it's
a much cooler headstone,
Exactly right, man. Yeah, exactly. If I go out, it's gonna be a story at
sucked least, into a portal,
Yeah, cool and it's weird because some of the stuff you go back to what we experience just reinforces a lot of these witness experiences. Okay.
Sure.
Jessi mentioned in passing earlier this thing called the Oz factor. It was something that was used in relation to like UFO encounters that were really bizarre. And people were going, I was like there, and this was such a bizarre occurrence, and nothing really seemed real. And I should have been panicking. It was almost like I was in like a dream state, and it wasn't until later that I just went, why did I behave like that? The Skinwalker Ranch crew, not the TV show, but the original guys out there doing it would talk about that. They'd have stuff happen, and they would have $20,000 thermal cameras or night vision equipment right next to them, and they would never grab it just because they were just seeing what they were seeing was so weird.
It's like a paralyzing bewilderment.
Yeah, it was just you're so bewildered. You're struck dumb by
it.
And we've had that stuff happen before. I mean, if you've watched some of our stuff when we captured that weird audio in North Georgia where we set out that recorder and we came back and whatever was on the audio was still there. I mean, we pull guns and go into the woods after it. You know what I'm saying? It's something tangible that's growling. I don't know if it's tangible because we could never find it, but we thought it was tangible. But then some of this other stuff that you see, you're literally even going out prepared. There's a moment where your mind can't, you don't have those built in. There's no way to train for any of this. You know what I'm saying? Right. You can't go to a training facility and somebody simulate this stuff for you to get used to it. And sometimes you react really quickly and really well. And then other times it's just like your body is just, and your mind is just overwhelmed by the alienness of it. And when I say alien, I don't mean from like a little green man from another planet, something that's just so foreign and incomprehensible to you that you don't have a point of reference to explain it makes sense,
Of course.
And the things that she mentioned that we saw in the LBL, I mean, it's weird. We find that campsite and then we realize that just a few yards away, there's an old family cemetery that's just right there. And it's so old that there's no tombstones. There's no carved tombstones.
It's just stone markers.
Just stone markers that they've used, river rocks that were oval shaped that they put up to basically mark the grave at that point, which right there. And I'm filming her, and she sees that. We don't even have a term for it because I don't know what it is, but she saw it. She like almost goes into shock. You see me, and I'm pretty dismissive of it. I'm just like, oh, you feeling better? Well, what did it look like? All right, well, we should get going, you know, because I'm just going, oh, her eyes played tricks on her. That just sounds ridiculous. And then the same thing happened to me later, you know, and I'm filming, and I still couldn't catch it because it was too quick. And it just shook me to my core. And now I'm going, all right, now I know why you reacted like that. It didn't look natural. It looked like there were too many joints in the limbs. The limbs looked too long. There's no way that it should have moved as quickly as it did. It was physical because at least the thing I saw moved branches. It hit branches, and the branches were still moving when I ran over there.
But it was just like it was darker than the deepest darkness.
Yeah, and it went over a dip in the ground, and it didn't follow the curvature of the landscape. It just went in a straight line. If you had told me that I'd seen a hologram, I would believe you, but it moved the branches, and I don't know what it is, but it was just so, and it moved so quick. I caught it like this, and as I turned my head, I reached the point where I couldn't turn my head anymore, and I had to start turning my body, and it was already gone. We never found it. And it was just, it was alien. It was, again, not from another planet, but it was something that it didn't look like a Dogman, and it didn't look like a Sasquatch.
And you have a lot of people that really are starting to dismiss the LBL as just these are just stories. These are stories about the LBL. I don't think it's just Dogman or Sasquatch, or I think there's a lot more there. I think there's a lot more going on there. Yeah. It's I don't know what.
Kentucky itself is like, I always say Kentucky itself is almost like a state-sized skinwalker ranch.
It's one of the weirdest states in the United States.
There's everything there from like magnetic anomalies in the middle of the state near Somerset.
Caves.
Little green men.
The Hopkinsville goblins.
Yes.
Creatures that come out of the ground. Yeah. There was the Sasquatch shooting at Mammoth Cave National Park a few years ago that we've got a friend who is a Kentucky cop, and he's also like a Bigfoot researcher. He's been looking into that. Hopefully he's going to bring his stuff out. There's some weird stuff about that.
Very weird stuff
about that case. Something happened out there that night.
I think part of what's going on with the LBL though is, there's a reason that Kentucky is called a dark and bloody ground. There's so much history there that contributes to this. And in reference to the LBL, why it's such a dark and bloody ground is it has a very dark history. The people that live there were removed from their land. It was taken from them so that they could build these lakes from these rivers. There's just so much anger behind that. Some of them were forcibly removed. It has a history of being a site during the French and Indian War. It has a history of being a site during the Civil War.
Some really bloody battles
took place there. It was settlers came through there. There was genocide there. There was slavery there. There was the iron industry took place there.
There was violent slave revolts.
There was violent slave revolts that are documented there.
So that's all going on in this fairly small geographic area in the grand scheme of things.
And then
that's before any of the real weirdness started.
Yeah, and then it's just allowed to fester. And I think that a lot of that negative energy sits there and starts to soak into the land and starts to fester and rot. And it creates an environment in which these negative entities can exist and manifest into some sort of physical form.
So it goes into something that we're dealing with, and we still kind of struggle with, because to me it doesn't make sense, but it's a lot of stuff doesn't make sense. But I mean, you're seeing either causation or you're seeing something. The one area in North Georgia that we're going to, where we caught the lights, where we caught the growls, all of this stuff's going on up there. There's like human occult activity taking place at the same time up there.
Yes.
And we're going, is it just completely separate and unrelated, but it's happenstance that it's taking place in the same area? Is there something about this spot that makes it easy for stuff like this to manifest, and it just attracts people who are looking to perform these occult rituals? Or are the people performing these occult rituals and then it's strengthening the other activity that's there? That sounds crazy to me, but at the same token, you can't deny what you're seeing. I can't deny what I'm seeing there, and that's what's going on. Now the LBL is the exact same way. There's human activity that's taken place there for since there's been people around on this continent in that area to do stuff. And then the way the land was taken, and then just all of the, if you start making a checklist of all of the weird geographic features that go hand in hand with any sort of like paranormal or supernatural activity, all of it's at the LBL. Okay. Iron Bridges. There's a graveyard like every 20 feet, it seems like.
Yeah, there's over 200 cemeteries on the peninsula.
That's crazy.
Caves, old mines.
Many of the cemeteries had been dug up. The bodies had been moved. Some of them, they didn't even bother to move the bodies. They just moved the headstones and lied about moving the bodies.
And then just flooded the area. So there's bodies underground there. It's the LBL so strange because you've got all that going on. And then at the same token, the way the LBL has been managed since its inception is bizarre. So they flooded those two rivers. Yeah, the LBL, for those of you who don't know, it's the largest inland peninsula, because you always hear about the 82 massacre, but you don't really hear a lot about the LBL itself.
Right.
LBL's two rivers that they dammed up.
The Tennessee and the Cumberland.
So they dammed them up and they used it to bring hydroelectric power to the area. So they eminent domained all of these people's property in order to flood it. Okay. And then they seized everything in between these lakes. They kicked everybody off their land, and they're like, okay, well, to kind of like soothe everybody's like anger in that area, they're going, it's okay. We're going to turn it into a national recreation area. It's going to bring a lot of tourism dollars to the area. And I think it did for a little while, but nowadays it's just basically left to rot. There's a few areas through there that people go to. There's like a horse ranch. There's an off-roading place. And then there's like one or two like structured campgrounds, where you can take an RV into and hook up. The rest of the LBL is pretty deserted at this point. And you're there and you're looking at it because you find remnants of old homes there. You find everything from like old shacks with like metal roofs to just like stone chimneys that are left. And you're like going, why did they kick these people off this land just to let it rot at this point? And like our second or third trip there, I looked at Jessi and I was going, short of just dynamiting the bridges leading into this place, they've done everything they can to make it somewhere where you don't want to go to.
Yep.
And we hear like theories all the time about it was made to contain something. They made this area to contain stuff. They made this area to house things. And I can't say whether that's true or not, but the way the LBL was made and then the way it's been managed afterwards,
you could certainly see that as a possibility.
Given all the weird stuff that's happened.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
And I know that, and you start getting into, we hear stuff like this about people going, well, there's something going on underground there. And I know, again, you're kind of getting into real like tinfoil hat territory there. I can't tell you what it is. We felt the ground rumble there for no reason at all. We've heard machinery. It seems like it's coming out of the ground. We caught it on camera. What was that? Our second werewolf experiment video?
I think it's the second werewolf experiments
video.
We
hear it, and people are going, well, it's a barge. No, we went down to the lake because we thought it was a couple of things. We thought
I love barges, and I know what barges.
Yeah, it was not a barge. And people are going, well, it was the dam. They were letting water through the dam. No, because we got in the car and started driving to the dam. And the further we got from the LBL towards the dam, the less that sound just went away. And then we got right back in that same area, and there's the sound again. So you hear, like I said, and people have contacted us with different like stories and theories and all that. And some of them sound wild, but I can't say they're not true. And then now there's stuff coming out. Barton Nunley, I don't know if you've watched his channel. He's got a guy that was associated with the Land Between the Lakes for decades that has retired and is now coming out just, dishing what he's known and has found out. And he's like going, yeah, there's something going on underground there. You can hear heavy machinery. This guy worked in the LBL daily for like decades. And he is a wildlife biologist. And when you hear him communicate, you can tell this is somebody who it's hard to fake that level of training,
Sure.
I mean, I could sit here and tell you right now that I'm a rocket scientist. And the moment I started to describe rockets, you would quickly become aware of the fact that I'm just lying my ass off. This guy is familiar with it. And he's got some weird stuff to say that backs up all of these stories that people have told for years through there. That whole area is weird, man. That whole area is weird. You look at Kentucky, when we started to map all of these like strange animal attacks and then like strange deaths with like unknown animals or animals being mutilated and they don't know what the culprit was. You start running through, Kentucky's got more local legends of like just werewolves. That's because that's what they call them. People out there don't know the term Dogman. You don't really know that if you're off the internet.
Sure.
the Wadi werewolf, the Gateway werewolf, Bearilla, all of these. I'm looking at it and I'm going, you know, like in our state, we've got like one kind of like werewolf legend.
Yeah.
The Anderson werewolf. Kentucky's got like 20. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just and you don't know if like, and your thought is that, all right, these people were in isolated little communities down in hollers. They're experiencing the same thing. They just came up with different stories for all of it. But it's really weird. You get into that neck of the woods, and why is there so many werewolf legends there and so many different names for like different like local werewolves? And then you have all of these dog attacks, animals being attacked. You put it on a map and you start looking at it and you're going, why is it only happening here? It's not happening over here. It's not happening down here. It's all happening right here, where people have been talking about werewolves going back for decades, if not 100 years at this point.
Yeah. It's just not coincidence, man. It's not coincidence. You know, like we said before, Occam's razor at some point just has to slice to this way.
Oh yeah, it cuts both ways, man. It's a double-edged razor. And when you're looking,
Yeah.
when you just map it, you know, you just map it. When you start going, okay, well, this area had a werewolf legend, this area, this area, this area, this area, this area. All right, now let's start plotting in animal attacks where they don't immediately have an answer. And that's one of my favorite things. We talked about this earlier about how stuff kind of just disappears from the news. You never hear about it again. Remember about like, what was it, like 6-7 years ago, that monkey that got loose in Texas that was attacking kids and pets?
Yeah.
And it made regional news, national news, international news. There's a monkey loose in Texas. It's attacking people. Were supposed to keep their kids and their pets in. Whatever happened with that monkey? Because the story just vanished.
Yeah.
And I'm going, even if people in like New York no longer cared, I'm sure the people in Texas wanted to know that it was the monkey threat was over. You know,
Right.
That story just, it hit a certain level and then it was never spoken of again. And you can't find any conclusion to it. We don't know if the monkey was caught, even if it was a monkey.
I was going to say, do we know it was a monkey?
No, because there was never any conclusion to that story. And that's what you see with these weird animal attacks, man. You see these weird animal attacks, and dogs attack people. Not every dog attack's weird. That happens, you know. I grew up in the country as a kid. You know, there's dogs everywhere. I don't remember people getting killed like en masse by dogs in the past.
No.
And I know that people breed dogs and fight them, and some of the culture's changed a bit, but to this degree. And I mean,
you know, the people who breed those dogs and fight them, they guard them with everything they have because those dogs are their moneymaker. That dog's not getting out.
Yeah,
because it's caged in a basement somewhere and tied to a chain. Trust me, it's not getting out.
And if it's a rabid dog, it's going to attack you. It's going to attack you whether there's 3 of you, 4 of you, whatever. Where's ever the groups of people that go, yeah, we got attacked by this gang of dogs.
It's always a solitary person.
Solitary person who is just off in an area where you can't see it. And again, some of them are normal. But why do these cases occur in the same areas where you have all of these werewolf legends stretching back? Why are they having so many like wild dogs attacks? North Carolina's famous for it. Look up North Carolina and like mysterious animal attack, mysterious dog attack. And then you lay those in with these people that were contacting us before we went to the LBL, and I'm going, it all lines up.
Yeah,
man.
there's an immediate pattern emerging.
Yeah, and it's not if it's a coincidence, it's a really weird coincidence. It's only happening in certain areas, and it's not happening anywhere else. So
it's crazy. I did a show on this probably about 2 months ago about like cattle mutilations and like strange attacks and all that stuff. And you're right. It happens in these small clusters. It's not spread out across the whole state. It's always in these little small towns and areas where it's kind of like tucked away, you know. It's not where it's a busy city or a kind of bustling suburbs. It's always really tight communities where there's a ton of forested area around. At least that's what we were finding when we were trying to link these different things together. The things that we found where it was small communities, lots of forested land everywhere. Just strange.
Well, guess what? You're not the only person that's ever noticed that. John Keel, the UFO researcher, who just then kind of branched off into all manner of weirdness, you know, he would look at these UFO reports and he would go, it's bizarre. A lot of these UFO reports occur in very rural areas in the middle of the night. So a couple of people might see them. And yeah, there's a few things like the Phoenix lights and stuff like that, where there's just these mass, sightings. The vast majority of them occur in sparsely populated areas, times of night where you would not have a lot of people out looking at them.
And it's solitary sightings.
And it's solitary. So you see that correlation between like UFO sightings, how they behave, and then like, let's just call them cryptids, like physical creatures, entities, and humanoids, whatever you want to call them. Same thing. We always talk about like if there's like an interdimensional aspect to any of this stuff, which is like a popular. It was one of those things that people would kind of laugh at for years and years. But let's just look at the UFO thing, man. These aren't like nuts and bolts crafts lifting off from another planet, traveling through the cosmos, and then entering our atmosphere and coming down. Because look at who the government's kind of buddying up with. Jack Vallee is the guy who basically came up with the whole idea of interdimensional hypothesis with these craft coming from another dimension. He's thick like thieves, like with the government right now. He's involved with everything the government's doing with this stuff. So that's who they've gravitated towards. So obviously they see some
value in that.
Some value in why he's thinking. So if that's happening with these like physical creatures or these entities on the ground, just like you said, it's happening in areas, it's obviously intelligently controlled. You don't see a Sasquatch just zap into existence in the middle of Times Square Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. and then take 10 steps and go. It only goes into these areas where it's not going to be seen by a lot of people. There's not a lot of people there to see it. And it's at a time to almost guarantee that.
Sometimes that could actually contribute to the theory that there is a trickster element to all of this.
Yeah, exactly.
That it's very aware of how it's seen, and it only allows itself to be seen in certain ways or certain forms.
I believe that 100%. I believe it. There's just too much evidence that leans that way. I mean, especially like with the Sasquatch stuff that I hear from people over and over again when they email me and they say, "Hey, I got this going on at my house," or "I had this happen," blah blah blah. All of it's the same. It's always the same. It's always I was hearing things in the woods. There was vocals. There was shadows moving between trees that didn't move like any human being. They certainly weren't bears. They moved so fast. And like you said, when most people describe how they move like they're on one of those escalators at the airport.
Yeah,
they glide. It's like they're gliding. There's none of this bobbing up and down. It doesn't matter what the terrain's like. The head stays just dead level the whole time.
Yeah.
It looks like a ghost just going across. And then you inevitably get those like trickster, playful type of things where something's hitting my house, something is knocking on the window in the middle of the night, and then you can hear it running through the yard, taking off. Something's unlocking the pen that my chickens are in. Taking the light bulbs out of the lights, that are on the back shed. So there's definitely some trickster element with some of this stuff.
Sure. When we were in the LBL that first night, we decided to live stream. We had
on this last trip.
On this last trip, we scouted the area out, and some of the areas that are near the water, there's some cell towers on the mainland that they put up in recent years, and you can kind of sometimes catch a signal. So we scouted them out and figured out where we could get a signal at and decided to live stream. We went out for like a Dogman hunt. We've got thermal imagers. We've got some drop record. What we'll do is a lot of times if we're hiking through an area, we'll put little digital audio recorders behind us, kind of hide them, and then collect them later on to see if we hear anything following us, stuff like that. So we went out geared out for like a Dogman hunt. And then we just started seeing strange lights everywhere. And they'd be in front of us. We'd move towards them. They'd disappear. They'd be behind us. We'd start going backwards. And if you watch that live stream, I start getting ticked off like halfway through, like real ticked off, because it's just toying with us. It's just going back and forth and I even just go, this is playing with us. I got to the point where I was like, I don't even want to stream anymore. I don't want to do this anymore tonight. This is I'm done, But and it's weird because when I thought about that later, I'm like, God, why did it get under my skin so bad? Because we've had that happen before. To me, that was an out of the ordinary response. And I almost wonder, was something affecting me that I didn't know that was causing to be so irritable with that? Because I'm used to that. Normally, I would want that to happen because I would go, all right, this is definitely not a natural light source. Natural light sources don't do this. But instead, it just ticked me off. And it was to the point where I was just going, I just want to get out of here. I don't want to do this anymore. But yeah, there's definitely a trickster element to it. I mean, we've seen it in that one spot in North Georgia before, the way that we would go out geared for, I'll tell you, man, we went out, we were geared for Bigfoot stuff, and we had all this stuff, let's just call it like paranormal activity happen. So we came back geared up for paranormal activity. We even talked about it leaving out of the woods. We come back, we've got like EMF detectors.
Yeah, we were ready to go on like
boxes.
a hardcore ghost hunt.
We get out of the vehicle and we hike in maybe 100 yards, and there in the middle of this muddy path is just the most stereotypical Sasquatch print you've ever seen.
Yeah.
I mean, to the point where we're both looking at it going, what the hell? I mean, we come out for Sasquatch, it's supernatural activity. We come out ready for the Sasquatch of supernatural activity. We're not even really into the woods yet. And here's a picture perfect Sasquatch print. It's like something's anticipating you and just kind of low key mocking you with it, you know, just kind of going, going, you're never gonna guess right. I'm always going to be a step ahead of you. And yeah, you're kind of putting some, you're putting a personality to the activity, but that's what it seems like, man. It seems like
that's also suggesting that there's such a deep connection between the phenomenon. Like there's this unified phenomenon theory there, you know, that
we talk about that here often.
And we think they're all connected in some kind of way, but that really lends it that there's some sort of trickster elemental orchestration of the phenomenon.
Yeah, and it's weird because I used to the whole like Bigfoot UFO thing, and I still don't. I can't prove it one way or the other, but I'm inclined to think that there are not physical craft coming through the atmosphere, landing on Earth, and Sasquatch getting out and walking around.
No, I don't either.
I'm not going to preclude it, but I just don't think that's what's happening. But I used to just go, that's just crazy talk. That's just somebody who's their imagination's just too active. That's how I used to think. But you start looking at it, and some of these Sasquatch encounters, they got a hell of a lot in common with like what people report with UFOs. I mean, I know Barton Nunley was on the chat earlier, but if you ever listen to him talk about the stuff that his family encountered when they were kids, it was a physical creature attacking the house, killing the pets, killing the livestock. People were shooting at it. And he mentions it quite a bit, but a lot of people kind of gloss it over. But he talks about how the livestock and the dogs that this creature killed, none of the scavengers would touch it. None of the vultures would touch it. It didn't seem to decompose. That goes hand in hand with what? Cattle mutilations that are. So why does an animal that's been killed by a physical flesh and blood, unknown but otherwise earthly creature, why are there so many similarities between what people are claiming with UFO stuff? And there's just so many parallels. Somebody earlier in their chat had mentioned something about the fae, like fairies, right?
Yeah.
I draw these parallels all the time because I've got a background in Western European mythology and stuff like that, and folklore. And if you look at, and there's other people that have explained it far greater than I have, but if you look at traditional, and I'm not talking like Tinkerbell and stuff like that, but if you look at the core folklore, the folklore that a lot of our ancestors just traded back and forth religiously because it was basically a religion to them before Christianity came through.
Yep.
The folklore that they had, they're describing stuff that if you change the names and a little bit of the details, there's not that much difference between what they were reporting encountering with the fae than people report encountering with aliens or the visitors, the greys, anything like that.
And that's the whole concept of Passport to Mangonia by Jacques Vallée.
That he drew these parallels.
It's the phenomenon of many faces.
Yeah, if you look at somebody who goes, I was out walking at night, I saw these weird lights. The next thing I know, there are these little creatures and they take me away, and they did stuff to me, and then I woke up in a field and I thought I'd been just gone for an hour, but it was 3 days. Again, if you took Travis Walton's account and you dressed them like 14th century Europeans and you took the truck out of it, that would be a classic portion of like European folklore. So when people, do I think that there's fairies? No, but I think that the same phenomenon was happening back then, and that our ancestors interpreted it the best way they could. I think a lot of folklore is like a roadmap, and it's like an instruction manual that our ancestors have left on what they experienced and how to deal with some of this stuff. I mean, this sounds crazy. There's no scientifically plausible thing for it, but 2 or 3 times now we've had it where Jessi has gotten like zapped by something, and we've crossed moving water, and she's completely normal.
Yeah,
Just
I remember
completely
that.
fine.
Yeah,
That's happened twice that I know of on camera. Well, no, I take it back. Twice on camera, once at Panther Town.
yeah. That the first time it happened was at Panther Town.
If it's exhaustion, dehydration, the heat got to her, anything like that.
That's never
That's not
remedied by crossing water.
No, it's
That's
not
never
gonna
remedied
happen.
by crossing 20 feet of shallow moving water. But we've seen that happen so much so now that the last time it happened, I'm like, let's cross this moving water and everything's okay.
Yeah.
And that's straight from folklore. That's how they dealt with fairies, witches, everything like that. All of the little things that they used to think, they think that they knew inhabited the forests and that people would run into. They left these instruction manuals, and sometimes they're pretty accurate, even if it doesn't seem like it's logical.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? And I didn't think about this until just this moment, that when I had that happen in the forest, when I got zapped,
Mm-hmm.
when the only time that when I felt better was when I was driving out of that forest and I crossed over the stream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's weird because other people will go, well, that didn't happen to me. Well, that's all well and good. And you obviously had a different experience.
I have
but that
goosebumps right now. I did.
Yeah, but I mean, so that happened to you. That's happened to her. So now we've got two test subjects, if you will.
We got 2 data points.
We've got a couple data points that shows that happens. And
so weird.
Again, it's not something that she is inclined to think towards, because she doesn't, her skill set lies in a different direction than mine. She doesn't think of the folklore aspects of stuff. You didn't even think about it until I talked about it. So that kind of rules out any sort of psychosomatic thing where maybe your mind's playing tricks on you. That doesn't make sense. So
weird, man.
Yeah.
It didn't hit me until right now.
And again, that's just so weird, because now you're taking something that's mysterious and you're making it even more mysterious. But the other option is just to deny it. Yeah. So, you always hear that with a lot of you hear that about the BFRO, that if the Bigfoot stories they get are too weird, they either edit them or kick them out,
Yeah.
So when you're having a discussion with somebody and they go, well, they're just flesh and blood animals, look at all the reported encounters. And I'm going, the reported encounters are just a fraction of what takes place. Most people don't report encounters, especially when you get with weirder stuff like Dogman. We talk to people in Kentucky and Tennessee and stuff like that, North Carolina, that have had these things happen and they've experienced these things. These people are not people who spend a lot of time online. These things happen and their first thought is to I got to go home and make a report. Who are you going to make a report to?
That's also why, when you talk to people in Kentucky and you talk to them about the Dogman phenomenon, the locals in the area, they don't refer to it as Dogman. They're not involved in this Dogman arena and this Dogman field. They'll often just refer to them as werewolves, because
the beast. Yeah.
Or the beast. Yeah. But that's the nomenclature. That's the closest reference point you have to it. So even if you have someone describing something and they don't use the right terminology according to the community or whatever, it doesn't mean that it should be dismissed as not a real encounter.
And it's weird too, because on a side note on that's where the self-policing that a lot of the people that are involved in this, it precludes important information from coming forward sometime. I think our friend from Cryptid Response is in the chat. He had a guy that had some really weird stuff going on in Kentucky that he was talking to and dealing with. And the guy got chased out of every cryptid or Bigfoot Facebook group that he went into, because he was just trying to get answers, because he didn't have a background in any of this. He doesn't know. He's seeing these tall, skinny things around his property. They killed his pigs. They're killing livestock and pets. They're coming up to his house, and he's describing them as being really lanky, but hairy, moving really fast. And he goes, they've got skulls for faces and antlers. So everybody's going, you're describing Wendigo. You're too far south for that. Get out of here. So they just kicked him out. This dude doesn't know what a Wendigo is. He looked online and found an image, and he goes, that's what I saw. That's the closest thing to what I saw. And
oh, hell no.
So we're talking to this guy that our friend Cryptid Response talked to him for months. And it turns out the guy's going, it looks like they're wearing masks. It looks like they're wearing masks. It looks like they're wearing deer skulls and like maybe elk skulls over their faces like masks. That's interesting. That's always stuck with me. Well, we've got a friend of ours who's recently gotten into this stuff. His father was at a was it a gun store talking to some hunters, and he started talking to some hunters, and these are just old crusty men, man, you know, telling stories at the gun counter, and they're talking about these Sasquatch that are wearing elk skulls
as masks,
and they're seeing them kill deer. So that's 2 data points now. I'm going, all right, I've seen
and these are
twice.
totally independent of each other.
And then now I hear another story where this guy's reported that he was in his deer blind and he saw these 2 things wearing like elk skulls for masks. One was chasing a deer and one jumped out of like a spider hole on the ground, and like they killed the deer, stripped it, twisted its head off, and then took the deer meat and put it back in the hole and kind of covered it. And then the dude just got the hell out of there. And now this guy is a friend of ours. He's going, maybe this is why, you know, a lot of the evidence of these things is hidden because obviously they bury stuff. But now that's 3 data points we've heard of people of seeing these things wearing like elk skulls.
Yeah.
And now I'm going, maybe that's the genesis for the Wendigo myth. Of course, Wendigo and like the original Indian myth didn't have the skulls and the antlers supposedly, but actually you go through, there are a few real obscure native tales that mention a skull-like emaciated face and antlers. Then it's not,
but it could be referring to this kind of behavior.
And that might be referring to these things, you know, because all of these guys are talking about seeing them hunting, seeing them eating. What's the main thing for the Wendigo? It's that hunger
and
it's
the consuming of flesh.
And so it's you look at that and I'm going, this is something that's not in popular discussion because it sounded crazy to even people that are involved in this stuff. So it got kicked out. And, you know, that's just one little thing. How much stuff goes unreported even to people that are into cryptozoology and the paranormal and all that, because people are sitting there going, there's no way in hell anybody would ever believe me. So,
well, yeah, that's the thing. And that like, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where I want so bad to create an environment that fosters, safety, that people know, like, hey, I can come here and talk about this and not be afraid of being ridiculed. I can share what I saw. I'm not going to be the one to validate it for you, but please come share it because it could help, right?
Occasionally you're going to get hoaxed and you're going to have to deal with a lie. And guess what? That's not the end of the world. I would rather get hoaxed really bad 9 times and then just have one crazy but verifiable story come along that moves the needle a little bit, moves some of our knowledge a little bit. I mean, you're going to get hoaxed. There's no way to get around it. You know what I'm saying? So just deal with it, move on. And you're never going to, people are always like, oh, I want to debunk this. I don't want people to believe these falsehoods. People are going to believe whatever they believe. If they're believing, if they're believing something they see on the internet just wholeheartedly against any evidence, then even if you debunk that to the point where they don't believe it anymore, they're going to believe the next thing that comes along. Why waste your, I mean, so that's my thing, is that I just go, you know what? You're going to get debunked every once in a while. Like, it's, ever since people have been studying this, they know that a certain level of like falsehood seems to go hand in hand with it. Jacques Vallée talks about it. He thinks that some of that is done on purpose by the phenomenon itself to kind of armor itself, to kind of, it's kind of a protection level.
It's kind of a red herring.
Yeah, it's kind of like it generates its own red herrings to keep you from discovering the truth at that point. So
makes sense. I mean, I've thought that before. Like, man, so some of this stuff seems like it's being done on purpose so that we're more confused than ever.
Exactly.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And every time you think you find an answer to something, there's 10 more questions, and you just end up going in circles.
Well, it's like that. I mean, when I was doing just flat out Sasquatch research, you get a report. You're looking for like a food source. You're looking, is there fresh water nearby? Is the area large enough to like support it? And nowadays, I hate to say it, I don't even really care about any of that stuff, man. Because for every Sasquatch report where there's deer and berries and a food source and it's large enough, to support a large mammal, there's 4 or 5 where those things aren't there, but somebody still saw it. So it doesn't make sense, but it was there and it happened. So that's, like you said, that's the certain frustrating part, because sometimes you start getting a pattern figured out and then it just veers off in a left field,
I got a guy who had a trackway go out into a field, a snowy field. Okay. They were 16-inch footprints by 8 or 8.5 inches wide. This is obviously not a human being. Okay, goes out into the middle of this field, and then it just ends. It disappears. It stops there. And for anybody who says that it walked backwards through its tracks, sure, that's what happened. The closest tree was 180 feet away. So while I believe that they physically have some amazing capabilities, I do not think they can jump 180 feet.
Yeah. I mean, I used to come up with those same like implausible explanations for it. I don't know if you remember J.C. Johnson with Crypto Four Corners down in the Four Corners area. He was experiencing and he was a heck of a nice guy. I used to correspond with him a little bit before he passed away, but I didn't take a lot of the stuff that he was talking about seriously. And that was one of the things he would talk about, these trackways. And he would have people on the reservation down there that would go, I saw it walking and it grew wings and then flew away. And I'm just going, yeah, sure, it grew wings and flew away.
That's the genesis of the bat squatch.
Bat squatch is what he was calling it. And I'm going, you don't really believe that, man. Come on, you can't really believe that. And I'm not saying I believe that right now, but I don't believe that it walked backwards in its own footsteps. Something happened where it was there and it was leaving physical traces on the environment, and then it wasn't. Right. So what are your options at that point? It flew away, it went into another dimension, something came and picked it up. But I mean, there's the physical evidence. It was here, it was affecting the environment, and then it wasn't. Where did it go to? So
yeah, this is why I love the term supernatural for the Sasquatch, because obviously it means it can interact and live in the natural world and then have some kind of super ability. Whatever that is, I don't know, but I don't personally believe that it's just an ape. I don't believe it's Australopithecus. I don't believe it's just a regular animal or hybrid of us. There's something else to me.
There's too much evidence to the contrary.
Yeah,
that it's just
way
an
too
ape.
much.
Yeah,
and it's weird because if you really look at it just dispassionately, and you really look at it, and you go, the people that are just really, and guess what? I'm not precluding the idea that there might literally be a very small population of just undiscovered upright primates in some really remote locations in the United States. There might be, it's almost like there might be two phenomenon going on, like the Sasquatch, and then what you'd almost call like a wild man that kind of like has almost like a supernatural presence to it. So I'm not saying that's not impossible, but I'm just saying that when you really look at it, you've got to give some credence to some of the arguments that some of these skeptics make. I mean, if it's just a monkey, it seems like we'd have it in a cage by now.
Yeah,
right.
It's one would get hit cross, and I always talk about that because people humanize them to a certain extent. They talk about they have personalities and they live in clan structures and this and this and this. And I'm going, okay, well, because what I see is I don't see the behavior of a tribe of people or a troop of apes or anything like that. I see where's the stupid one that makes a mistake? Where's the risk taker, the daredevil, who I'm going to just jump out in front of this car to give myself, give them a little glimpse of myself and misjudges it and gets smashed by an 18-wheeler. Where's the dumb ones who are not smart enough to keep up this constant, lack of proof at this point? It almost seems like you're dealing with a hive mind, and that doesn't sound like a tribe of people. They're constantly in lockstep. There's never a mistake made.
And you always have people who say there's new species discovered every day. There's a new species of plankton discovered. There's a new,
or maybe, and maybe even a sizable mammal, but guess what? They caught it through mundane and they stumbled across it. You got a ton of people out looking for Sasquatch, and nobody's finding it. Where are the bodies? Well, they bury their dead. All right. Where's that one who was just antisocial and went off and got sick and just died and just laid there on the ground?
Right.
Why is that not? Why do we never find that? You start to look at it logically and you go, if this is just an undiscovered flesh and blood creature, it behaves like no other flesh and blood creature on the planet. No other. So even if it's flesh and blood, it's still very unique and it still doesn't sound normal. It doesn't sound like an undiscovered ape.
Yeah. I mean, if it's flesh and blood, it has to obey every single rule that every other flesh and blood animal does, and
that goes back to that thing where people grasp onto So you're a Sasquatch researcher and you start getting report after report after report of those self-illuminating eyes. So you find a parallel in the animal kingdom and you latch onto it, and, bioluminescence, and you don't do any research into bioluminescence at all when you realize, well, if this is actually a mammal, the whole thing about seeing infrared is one of the things that I'm always, if you look at the animals that can sense infrared, they're all cold-blooded because infrared's basically heat.
Right.
A warm-blooded animal gives off body heat that's going to interfere with your ability to see infrared. But these things do seem to be able to detect infrared. Sure, I mean, so much so that we make like little beacons that we put out sometimes with infrared strobes on them to see if we can like entice something to come in, because it's infrared. It's novel to the area. It's not a camera light or a game cam. If they can, because it seems like they can see them. We've had stuff that we've staked out areas with game cams, and then we'll come and find that everything's moving behind the game cam. A trail is developed behind there. And if that's a warm-blooded, just natural animal, that's physically impossible. So again, you're to the point where if it's just an ape, well, it's an ape that doesn't behave like any other ape or any other mammal on the planet. So that doesn't sound natural to me.
Right. My buddy Fresh, actually, he's asking this question right here. He said, how can you hear vocalization but never see anything, but it's there on audio? And I know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So there's a thing with that is there's a theory that we've been kind of going over it, that it allows you to hear it, but it won't allow you to see it or record it. We've been experimenting with possibly using analog means to capture the phenomenon. Because if you think about the Patterson-Gimlin film, that's an analog camera. You think about Ron Moorhead's Sierra Sounds, that's an analog audio recording device.
Physical audio tape. So,
yes. So we've been experimenting with using analog means to record that. Central Florida Bigfoot is actually working with a Patterson-Gimlin camera, the camera that they use, not the exact camera they use.
Same model and everything.
Same model, same year, everything. And he's trying to recreate the footage to see what the footage would look like from the exact camera, to kind of investigate that, to connect that. But I think there's some sort of analog and digital connection there that for some reason, the Patterson-Gimlin film, they were able to capture it and it allowed it to capture it. But it seems like now you can't capture it.
And what does that tell you? I don't know what that tells you. But if you're
there's some sort of other intelligence.
If you're a primatologist and you're studying mountain gorillas, if you go out with a analog camera or a digital camera, you're going to be able to film these mountain gorillas. Yeah. You're not going to go out there and just go, oh, I took a digital camera, I was unable to film these mountain gorillas. If you were to try to record bird song and you record it on an analog or a digital audio recorder, you're going to catch your audio. There's not the quality might be a little different, but you're still going to be able to capture it. Why is it that sometimes this stuff is only captured on analog stuff and then digital you struggle with? I mean, we caught those really weird growls and like vocalizations in North Georgia when we left that recorder there, and then heard it briefly when we came back. We rushed into the woods to try to catch it. We never saw anything. We never heard anything move off. And then we reviewed the film afterwards. We're looking like this direction. Well, like right here, there's two little red dots of light that look like eyes that look at us and then just dip away. We didn't see anything there. There was no body stand. There was no physical form standing there. I can't explain any of that. I don't, but we caught it on audio and on video. So it happened, it happened. But why couldn't we see it? We're right there. We hear it right in front of us. Yeah. Something that was that big is not going to stay that hidden in the very sparse vegetation through there. We never saw anything. So
I get it. I mean, this, like I said, this happens. I'll hear the vocals. They'll be 30 yards, 40 yards from me. And it's crazy because it's not just hearing it. You can feel it. I feel it immediately. I feel it whenever whatever it is around. It's like everything changes. Every other animal in there goes dead silent. It doesn't make a sound. It goes silent, and the energy changes. It shifts, and then you start having these things happen, and it's there. I've even seen multiple times, just always out the corner of your eye. So it's like I'll look to my left, And when I start to turn to look back, something goes,
yep,
just so quickly. It's always when you're doing this, when you're starting to turn to look back. It's never when you're staring right at it. Yeah, in a flash. It's like that. Man, it's just crazy. It's crazy. Listen, guys, I hate to cut this off, but I got to get up so early. This has been amazing. I would love to have you back on. I know your schedules are nuts. And I know you guys really did me a huge favor in doing this. If you do have time at all coming up, please let me know, because I would love to have you back on and do another couple hours. I know you got
absolutely. We had a ball tonight, so
this was wonderful. Really, this was so fun. I looked forward to this since the day that we talked, and you said you could do it. And I really am very grateful. I know the chat. This is a small show. I just started 3 months ago. And so, I only got 1,000 subscribers, which is a big amount for me. I thought that was great. I think it's wonderful. Trust me, I'm so happy about that. But 134 people in here tonight is a lot for me. So that speaks to what you guys brought to the table.
I really hope that a lot of the Hellbenders come and subscribe to your channel. We wanted to bring a bunch of them over here, and hopefully they subscribe to your channel and enjoy your content as much as we do.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Yeah, there were definitely new people here tonight, and I really appreciate that. You guys who came over, and really just humbling to have Martin and Cryptid Response and Deuster and just all these Barton in the chat. Like, what? You kidding me? A fanboy out all night, I promise.
Yeah, exactly. I know how you feel, man. I know how you feel. Trust me. So
this is amazing. You guys are great. Really, this is probably one of my absolute favorite interviews so far. Like I said, I'd love to have you back on, and I can't wait to see what you got coming up. Is there anything you want to plug? What's coming up next?
We've got a lot of stuff coming down right now. We have footage that I'm working on editing before we even left to go to the LBL. So we have a lot of crazy stuff coming up on our channel. But every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, we do a live show on our channel. We do Hellbent Holler live, and we go in there and we interact with the chat, and it's kind of a big hangout with everybody. All the Hellbenders.
We don't come in with determined topics or anything like that. And the chat pretty much leads the show.
It's always a lot of fun. It's pure bedlam in there some days. So, but we really just discuss these topics at length with our audience, and they give us a lot of great ideas. And so we really enjoy having that sense of community. And it's not just the basic greetings and stuff like that. It's like we're really engaged in some really, really hardcore conversation.
There's some deep stuff that comes out of there, man. We've got some people that just, it's pretty much every show somebody will say something and I'll go, holy crap, why have I never thought of that before? That's brilliant.
And if you are new to the chat, just be aware that there's a lot of inside jokes, but you'll catch up eventually.
Yeah, you'll catch up quick. So it's weird because we didn't even want to do a live chat. I was really kind of hesitant to do it. And she pretty much had to drag me into it. And now it's like the highlight of our week at this point.
It's the best, isn't it? It's so fun.
It's awesome. So.
Yeah, but we do that every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on our channel. Other than that, just keep an eye out. I'll have some videos coming out. We've got a kind of a shift at home going right now. So we're hopefully going to get through a lot of that stuff and hopefully move into a bigger space and have a better studio to kind of do stuff in. But yeah, just make sure you come to our lives. We do our lives every week, and monitor our socials. So on Instagram, I am Hellbent Jessi. Joe's on there, but he doesn't do anything with it. So I update there, and you can always find me on Facebook. I'm Jessi Leigh on Facebook, but you can find me there, and I always post what we're doing. But as always, you can always check us out on the lives every Monday. We're always there. So,
and guys, please go back and watch their videos. I promise you will not be disappointed. It's just such awesome stuff. I promise. It's great. And you don't hear me say that all the time. So please do.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Can you guys just hang out for 5 minutes backstage when this is over so we can just talk for 5 minutes? Is that cool?
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. And for everybody that's new, I really, truly appreciate you for coming over. Please subscribe, please like, please share. It means a lot. It helps channel grow. I know, yada, yada, all that YouTube stuff. But I love you guys. I'll be back tomorrow morning, like I always do, with my morning walk with Maverick. That's my dog. Every morning we do a walk. Well, Maverick does a walk and I get pulled along. So guys, I'll see you there. I love you all. Have a good night. Thank you so much. Till the next one. Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.